There is an art form in Japan known as Kintsugi. When a treasured piece of pottery breaks, it is not thrown away. Instead, the pieces are carefully gathered and painstakingly put back together using a special lacquer mixed with powdered gold, silver, or platinum. The philosophy behind this practice is that the breakage and repair are part of the object's history, not something to disguise. The cracks are not hidden. They are illuminated, transformed into golden veins that make the vessel more beautiful, more precious, for having been broken. A heart, when it breaks, feels much the same. There is the initial shock, the shattering. We look at the fragments of what was, the memories, the shared laughter, the future we had planned, and we believe we are no longer complete. A vital part of us has been lost, and we are left raw, vulnerable, and in pieces. The world rushes in with its advice, urging us to move on, to forget, to find a distraction. We are encouraged to spackle over the cracks, to present a smooth, unbroken surface as quickly as possible, because vulnerability is seen as a weakness, and grief as an inconvenience. So we busy ourselves, we numb the ache with noise, with work, with the fleeting comfort of new things or new people. Yet, beneath the surface, the feeling of being fractured remains. The quiet weight of our loss settles deep within us, a silent testament to the love that once was. But there is another way, an ancient path that does not ask us to discard the broken pieces or to hide the lines of our repair. It is a path that invites us to sit down, right in the middle of the shards of our life, and to look, to truly look. It asks us to see these fragments not as signs of failure, but as proof of a life fully lived, of a love deeply felt. This is the wisdom of Zen. It does not offer a simple cure or a way to escape the pain. Instead, it teaches us that the heart does not simply break, it breaks open. And it is here, in the very fissure of our deepest sorrow, that a space is created, a space for light to enter, for understanding to be born. This is not a journey to piece yourself back together exactly as you were. That vessel is gone. This is a journey of transformation, the path of the Kintsugi heart. It is an exploration of how, through our most profound wounds, we can become stronger, more compassionate, and possessed of a resilient beauty we never could have imagined before the fall. When a heart breaks, the first sensation is one of pure impact. It is a shock that travels through the nervous system before the mind has a chance to name it, a silent implosion in the center of your being. It is the feeling of the ground vanishing from beneath your feet. This initial, raw, and unavoidable pain is a fundamental part of the human experience. To love is to open yourself to the possibility of this pain. To live is to be vulnerable. In the teachings of the Buddha, there is a simple yet profound parable that speaks directly to this moment. He said that when an ordinary, unenlightened person experiences a painful feeling, they are struck by an arrow. The pain of the wound is real. It is sharp. It is undeniable. But then, the ordinary person, reeling from the first arrow, immediately shoots themselves with a second one. This is the story of the two arrows, and it holds the key to understanding the nature of our suffering and the path to its gentle release. The first arrow is the event itself. It is the phone call in the middle of the night, the finality in a partner's voice, the empty space in a home that was once full. It is the objective reality of the loss. This arrow is, in many ways, outside of our control. Life will present us with loss, with change, with endings. No amount of wisdom or practice can build a shield that makes us entirely immune to this first arrow. Zen does not promise a life free from pain. It promises a way to relate to that pain without multiplying it. The pain of the first arrow is clean. It is the pure, unadulterated sensation of grief, of sadness, of shock. It is a natural response to loss, like shivering in the cold. To feel this pain is to be alive, to be human, to have a heart capable of connection. There is an integrity to this first pain. It is simply what is. The great tragedy, the source of our deepest and most prolonged agony, lies in the second arrow. The second arrow is not the event, but our reaction to the event. It is the story we tell ourselves about what happened. It is the arrow we shoot into our own heart, again and again. While the first arrow wounds the body and the immediate emotions, the second arrow poisons the mind. It is the voice that whispers, "This shouldn't have happened." This resistance to reality is the fertile ground from which all second arrows are launched. From this single thought, a whole army of tormentors arises. There is the second arrow of regret, which plays the past on an endless, torturous loop. If only I had been more understanding. If only I had said this instead of that. If I had seen the signs sooner. Each "if only" is another twist of the arrow, a self-inflicted wound born from the illusion that we could have rewritten a past that is already gone. We appoint ourselves as the failed architects of our own history and sentence ourselves to a prison of our own making. Then comes the second arrow of blame and anger. We take the diffuse pain of the first arrow and we focus it, we weaponize it. We cast the other person as a villain, replaying their flaws, their mistakes, their cruelty. This can feel righteous. It can feel empowering for a moment. But this narrative of blame, while perhaps containing elements of truth, becomes a heavy chain. It binds us to the very person and situation we wish to be free from. The story of their wrongdoing becomes our story, a toxic narrative that we keep alive with our own mental energy, preventing the original wound from ever truly closing. The anger, nursed and rehearsed, becomes a fire that consumes our own peace. Perhaps the most devastating second arrows are those of fear and shame. Fear takes the pain of this single moment and projects it onto an infinite future. I will be alone forever. I will never trust anyone again. My life is over. I can't be happy without them. The mind, in its panic, takes a snapshot of its current despair and declares it a permanent landscape. It creates a terrifying future that does not yet exist, and then begins to suffer from it in the present. And shame, the most insidious arrow of all, turns the pain inward, making it a statement about our fundamental worth. This happened because there is something wrong with me. I am not good enough. I am unlovable. The external event of a breakup becomes internalized as a verdict on our very soul. The first arrow was an event that happened to us. The second arrow of shame convinces us that we are the event, that we are defined by the brokenness. So how do we stop? How do we learn to feel the sting of the first arrow without reaching for the quiver of the second? The practice begins with awareness. It begins with mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of creating a small, quiet space between the stimulus and the response. It is the gentle training of the mind to simply notice without immediately reacting. When the wave of sadness from the first arrow washes over you, the invitation is to simply feel it. Where is it in your body? Is it a tightness in your throat? A hollowness in your chest? A heaviness in your limbs? Can you breathe into that sensation without needing to add a story to it? Can you allow the raw feeling to be there, like a passing weather system in the sky of your awareness? When the thoughts that form the second arrows arise, and they will, the practice is not to fight them, but to see them for what they are. When the thought, "I should have done things differently," appears, you can gently say to yourself, "Ah, this is the story of regret." This is the second arrow. When the thought, "I am worthless," arises, you can notice it. Here is the story of shame. This is the second arrow. This simple act of naming creates a crucial separation. You are not the thought. You are not the story. You are the compassionate witness who is observing the thought, observing the story. The thought is just a thought, a transient event in the mind. It is not an absolute truth. In that moment of witnessing, you lower the bow. You choose not to shoot. You are not suppressing the pain. You are refusing to amplify it. You are choosing to be kind to yourself. This is a practice, not a perfect performance. There will be times when the second arrow flies before we even realize we've reached for it. The key is to notice it even then, without adding a third arrow of judgment for having shot the second. The path to healing is paved with this gentle, persistent awareness. It is the radical act of accepting the unavoidable pain of life, while systematically dismantling the factory of suffering that we operate within our own minds. By learning to distinguish between the two, we take the first step out of the cycle of torment and onto the path of peace. We begin to understand that while we may not have control over the first arrow, we have a profound choice when it comes to the second. And in this choice lies our freedom. This distinction begs a deeper question, however. What is the nature of this fundamental pain, this unavoidable vulnerability to the first arrow that defines so much of our existence? To understand that, we must look at the world through the lens of a core Buddhist teaching, the truth of dukkha. After distinguishing the sting of the first arrow from the self-inflicted wound of the second, we are left holding the raw, unavoidable pain of loss. This pain, this ache of existence, is not random or meaningless. In the Buddhist tradition, it is the most direct and potent symptom of a universal condition, a truth so fundamental that it forms the very first of the Four Noble Truths. This condition is known as dukkha. This ancient Pali word is often translated into English as suffering, but this single word is too narrow, too heavy with connotations of grim tragedy. To truly understand dukkha is to understand the very texture of our existence, and to see why a broken heart can feel like such a profound crisis. A more accurate, more nuanced translation of dukkha might be unsatisfactoriness, or a pervasive, underlying sense of unease. It is not a declaration that life is miserable, but rather a clear-eyed diagnosis that seeking permanent satisfaction in a world that is inherently impermanent is a strategy doomed to fail. To understand dukkha is not to adopt a pessimistic outlook. It is to finally be given the correct map of the territory you have been trying to navigate your entire life. The Buddha, like a master physician, identified three distinct forms of dukkha, each layering upon the others. The first is the most obvious, the one we all know intimately. It is called dukkha dukkha, the suffering of suffering. This is the pain of the first arrow. It is the headache, the grief, the physical pain of a body that gets sick and grows old. In the context of heartbreak, it is the sharp, undeniable anguish of the separation. It is the loneliness of a quiet evening, the pang in your chest when a shared memory surfaces unbidden. It is the pain of not getting what you want and the pain of getting what you don't want. This form of dukkha requires little explanation, for it is the overt pain that drives us to seek answers in the first place. It is real, it is valid, and it hurts. The second form of dukkha is far more subtle, and it speaks directly to the paradox of love and loss. It is called viparinama dukkha, the suffering of change. This is the unsatisfactoriness inherent in our pleasant experiences. This sounds strange, for how can happiness be a form of suffering? The suffering arises not from the happiness itself, but from its impermanent nature and our desperate clinging to it. Think of a child on a beach, meticulously building a beautiful sandcastle. The act of creation is joyful, a moment of pure bliss. But because the castle is made of sand and sits by the ocean, its impermanence is its defining quality. The tide will inevitably rise. The suffering of change is the anxiety that whispers beneath the joy, the knowledge that this perfect moment cannot last. When the wave finally does crash over the castle, the child's distress is acute. The pain comes not from the wave, which is simply acting according to its nature, but from the child's attachment to the sandcastle, from their desire for it to be permanent. Our romantic relationships are often our most cherished sandcastles. We pour our hopes, our dreams, and our identities into them. The moments of profound connection, of shared laughter, of quiet intimacy are deeply beautiful, but they are also impermanent, not because love is false, but because life itself is a ceaseless flow of change. People change, circumstances change, feelings evolve. The suffering of viparinama dukkha is the pain we feel when the beautiful state we clung to dissolves. The intensity of our heartbreak is directly proportional to the intensity of the happiness we tried to make permanent. We suffer so deeply, not because a happy experience ended, but because we fundamentally misunderstand its nature, believing it could be a solid, unchanging refuge in a world of flux. The third and most profound form of dukkha is sankhara dukkha, the suffering of conditioned existence. This is the background hum of anxiety, the baseline unsatisfactoriness that permeates all of life, even when things are seemingly going well. It arises from the simple fact that everything, including ourselves, is conditioned. This means that everything comes into being because of other causes and conditions, and is itself in a constant state of change. Your body, your thoughts, your emotions, your personality, they are not a solid, independent you. They are a temporary confluence of processes, a verb masquerading as a noun. Because this ground upon which we stand is constantly shifting, there is a fundamental insecurity to our existence. We are always subtly trying to secure ourselves, to prop up our identity, to control our world, to find solid ground where there is none. A loving relationship often becomes the primary way we seek to create this solid ground. It provides us with a stable identity as a partner, a lover, a spouse. It gives us a sense of security and meaning. When that relationship ends, it is not just the person we lose. The entire structure of our conditioned identity collapses. The heartbreak is so disorienting because it rips away the veil and exposes this fundamental, underlying instability of our existence. It reveals the sankhara dukkha that was always there, but was temporarily masked by the comfort of the relationship. This is the existential ache, the feeling that even if we get everything we want, something will still be missing. To hear this diagnosis that life is characterized by overt pain, the eventual decay of pleasure, and a baseline of existential unease can feel disheartening. But this is where we must see the Buddha not as a pessimist, but as the ultimate realist. To accept the truth of dukkha is not to resign oneself to misery. It is to stop fighting a war. You can never win the war against reality itself. Imagine living in a world without understanding the law of gravity. You would be in a constant state of frustration and confusion as things inexplicably fell to the ground. You might even grow angry at the objects themselves. But once you understand gravity, you don't despair. You work with it. You learn not to step off cliffs. You use your understanding to build tables that hold things up, and even airplanes that soar. Accepting dukkha is like accepting gravity. It's the foundational piece of knowledge that allows for true freedom. When you understand that pleasant moments are by nature fleeting, you stop trying to grasp them with a white-knuckled grip. This allows you to savor them more fully, to appreciate their beauty without the poison of clinging. When you understand that pain is a natural part of life, you can meet it not with resistance and fear, but with compassion and wisdom. The broken heart, then, becomes a profound teacher. It shows us the suffering of suffering in its rawest form. It demonstrates the suffering of change by taking away the happiness we held so dear. And in the ensuing collapse of our world, it reveals the fundamental, conditioned nature of all things. The diagnosis has been made. We see the condition clearly. Now, how do we begin the treatment? How do we sit in the midst of this storm of feeling without being capsized? Having faced the diagnosis of dukkha, we are left in the storm, the winds of grief, the lightning of anger, the chilling rain of fear. These are not abstract concepts, but visceral, overwhelming realities. In the face of such turmoil, our instinct, conditioned by a lifetime of habit, is to do one of two things. The first is to fight the storm, to suppress it. We clench our jaw, put on a brave face, and declare, "I'm fine." We throw ourselves into work, into exercise, into the noise of social life, anything to avoid the threatening roar within. We treat our own feelings as enemies to be conquered, emotions to be managed and controlled. We hold the storm at bay through sheer force of will, but this requires immense energy. It is like holding a beach ball underwater. Sooner or later, our arms will tire, and the ball will erupt to the surface with even greater force, often in unexpected and destructive ways as chronic anxiety, as sudden outbursts of rage, or as a deep, inexplicable melancholy. The second strategy is the opposite, but no less painful. We surrender completely, but not in a skillful way. We allow the storm to consume us. We become the storm. We don't just feel sadness. We believe we are a sad person. We don't just feel anger. We become a vessel of pure rage. Our entire identity merges with the emotion of the moment. We are lost at sea, tossed about by every wave, with no land in sight. We are drowning in our own feelings, and the narrative of the emotion becomes the absolute truth of our life. Both of these strategies, oppression and identification, are born of fear. They are attempts to deal with the terrifying power of our own inner world, and both, ultimately, lead to more profound and prolonged suffering. Zen, however, offers a third way. It is a path that is at once courageous, gentle, and profoundly transformative. It is the art of simply sitting with the storm. This practice does not ask you to fight your feelings, nor does it ask you to drown in them. It asks you to find a quiet, stable place within yourself, and to allow the storm to rage around you, watching it with a calm and curious heart. To understand this, we can use the timeless metaphor of the sky and the clouds. Your true nature, your deepest consciousness, is like the sky, vast, open, clear, and fundamentally untouched by anything that passes through it. Your emotions, your thoughts, your memories, these are like the clouds. Sometimes they are white and fluffy, beautiful to behold. Other times they are dark, heavy, and full of thunder and lightning. They can obscure the blue sky completely, but they are not the sky. They are visitors passing through. The sky is not afraid of the storm clouds, nor does it try to push them away. It simply allows them to be, to gather, to reign, and, in their own time, to dissipate, revealing the unchanging blue that was always there. The practice of mindfulness is the practice of remembering that you are the sky, not the clouds. This is not a passive resignation, but an active, compassionate engagement with your own experience. It begins with creating a space for stillness. Find a place where you can be undisturbed for a few minutes. You don't need a special cushion or a silent monastery. A chair in a quiet room is enough. Sit in a way that is both stable and relaxed. Close your eyes, and for a moment, just be. The storm will undoubtedly be there. A wave of grief may immediately rise. The heat of anger may flush your face. The first step is to simply acknowledge what is present. Instead of being swept away by the story, he said this, she did that. It's so unfair. You gently, silently, name the primary emotion. Ah, sadness is here. Or, I recognize you, anger. Or, loneliness is present in this moment. This simple act of labeling is incredibly powerful. It creates a tiny wedge of separation. The feeling is here, which implies that you are the one who is noticing it. You are the observer, not the observed. You are the sky, noticing a cloud. The next step is to move your attention from the story in your head to the sensations in your body. Our mental narratives can spin out of control, creating endless second arrows. But the physical reality of an emotion is always in the present moment. Where does this sadness live inside you? Is it a hollow feeling in your solar plexus? A tightness in your throat that makes it hard to swallow? A heavy weight on your shoulders? Be a gentle detective. Don't judge the sensation or wish it were different. Simply notice it with a kind curiosity. If anger is present, where is its energy? Is it a clenching in your jaw, a buzzing in your hands, a burning heat in your stomach? Stay with the raw physical data of the emotion. Now, you breathe, but this is a different kind of breathing. You are not breathing to push the feeling away or to make it go away faster. You are breathing to be with it. Gently, you can direct your breath towards the area of physical tightness or discomfort. Imagine your breath as a wave of warm, compassionate energy surrounding the sensation. You are not trying to fix it. You are not trying to heal it. You are simply holding it, accompanying it, letting it know that it is allowed to be here. You are offering the frightened, wounded parts of yourself the simple gift of your own accepting presence. In the Zen tradition, there is a story of a master whose disciple comes running to him in a panic. "Master," the disciple cries, "there is a ferocious tiger in the village square. We are all in danger." The tiger, of course, is a metaphor for a powerful, terrifying emotion. The master does not tell the disciple to fight the tiger or to run and hide. He simply says, "Excellent. Let us prepare a pot of tea." When the tiger, roaring and fearsome, arrives at the monastery gate, the master opens it, bows, and says, "Welcome, honored tiger. We have been expecting you. Please, come in, have some tea with us, and tell us what has brought you here." By meeting the terrifying energy with equanimity, curiosity, and hospitality, its nature is transformed. It is no longer a monster to be vanquished, but a messenger to be heard. When we practice this art of sitting with our own inner tigers, something remarkable happens. The emotion, having been seen, named, and allowed to exist without resistance, begins to lose its terrifying power. Its frantic need to get our attention subsides, because it has been given our full, compassionate attention. The energy of the emotion, which was kept alive by our struggle against it, slowly begins to run its course and dissipate naturally. We learn, in our very bones, that we can survive the storm. We learn that feelings, no matter how intense, are temporary phenomena. They arise, they stay for a while, and they pass away. And with each storm we sit through, we build a deeper, more unshakable confidence in the vast, peaceful sky of our own awareness. We are no longer afraid of our own hearts. But as we become more adept at watching these storms of emotion come and go, a profound question naturally arises. If I am not my grief, and I am not my anger, and I am not my fear, then who or what am I? This very practice of observation begins to erode the solid ground of the me who is feeling all these things, leading us to question the ultimate nature of the self. As we sit in the quiet space created by our mindfulness practice, watching the storms of emotion pass through the sky of our awareness, a question of profound significance begins to surface. If I am the sky and not the clouds, then who am I? If I can observe my sadness, I cannot be the sadness itself. If I can witness my anger, I am not fundamentally the anger. This line of inquiry leads us directly to the heart of Zen wisdom and to one of the most challenging, liberating, and often misunderstood teachings of the Buddha, the truth of anatta, or no, self. In the throes of heartbreak, this teaching is not an abstract philosophy. It is a direct path to understanding the very root of our anguish. The cry of a broken heart is so often a crisis of identity. I've lost a part of myself. I don't know who I am without them. My life has no meaning now. These are the lamentations of a self that feels diminished, fractured, and incomplete. And it is this very idea of a solid, separate self that Zen invites us to investigate with gentle, unwavering honesty. From the moment we are born, we are taught to construct this self. We are given a name. We learn to say, I, me, and mine. We build an identity from our memories, our personality traits, our accomplishments, our relationships, and the stories we tell ourselves about our lives. We come to feel that inside our head, behind our eyes, there is a permanent, continuous entity, a CEO of our being, who is piloting this body and mind through the world. This feeling is so convincing, so intuitive, that we rarely think to question it. But the Buddha did question it. Like a master scientist, he turned the lens of his awareness inward and looked for this essential self. And what he found was that it simply wasn't there. What he found instead was not a solid entity, but a dynamic, interdependent process. He saw that what we call the self is a temporary collection of 5 changing components. First, there is the body, our physical form. Is this me? It certainly feels that way. But this body is in a constant state of flux. Cells are dying and being replaced every moment. The body you have today is not the same body you had 7 years ago. It gets sick. It ages. It depends entirely on air, water, and food from the outside world to exist. It is an impermanent, dependent process, not a static thing. Second, there are our feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. As we have already seen, these are like clouds, arising and passing away based on conditions. They are visitors, not the essence of who we are. Third, there are our perceptions, the way our mind labels everything it encounters. Good, bad, beautiful, ugly, friend, enemy. This is a cognitive function, a labeling process, not a core being. Fourth, there are our mental formations. This is the busiest category, containing all our thoughts, our habits, our opinions, our biases, our hopes, fears, and intentions. These are conditioned patterns, learned responses, not some essential truth of our being. Finally, there is consciousness itself, the simple awareness that sees, hears, smells, tastes, touches, and thinks. But even this is not a solid, singular self. Seeing consciousness depends on an eye and a visible form. Hearing consciousness depends on an ear and a sound. It flickers in and out of existence, completely dependent on conditions. When we look for the self in any of these 5 bundles, we cannot find it. What we call me is like the word chariot. You can look at the wheels, the axle, the frame, but you cannot find the chariotness in any single part. Chariot is a convenient name we give to an assembly of parts. In the same way, self is a convenient name we give to the assembly of these 5 ever-changing processes. There is no ghost in the machine. There is only the machine, constantly in motion. Now, let us apply this revolutionary insight to the experience of love and heartbreak. When we fall in love, what is actually happening? Our bundle of processes are body, feelings, perceptions, habits, and consciousness becomes deeply interwoven with another's bundle of processes. My mental formations about the future now prominently feature you. My feelings of happiness become dependent on your presence. My perception of the world is colored by our shared experiences. The story of me becomes the story of us. We create a composite identity, a new, larger chariot assembled from the parts of 2. It is no wonder, then, that when the breakup occurs, it feels like a violent amputation. The other bundle of processes is ripped away, and the identity of us is shattered. The mental formations about our future are now null and void, leaving a gaping hole. The perceptions are now painful trigger source song, our restaurant. The habitual patterns of daily life are thrown into chaos. The very story of who we thought we were has been proven to be a fiction. The intense pain of heartbreak is the death rattle of this constructed, composite self. This is where the beautiful Zen metaphor of the wave and the ocean becomes our guide. Imagine a single wave rising from the sea. It has a birth, a unique form, a peak, and a crash upon the shore, which it experiences as its death. From the limited perspective of the wave, its individual life is everything. It might feel pride at its height, or fear as it begins to fall. But what is the wave? In reality, is it ever truly separate from the ocean? Number, its essential nature, is water. It is a temporary manifestation of the entire ocean. Its birth was simply the ocean swelling, and its death is simply the ocean receding. It was never anything but ocean. We are like that wave. We identify with our temporary form, with our personal story, with our separate ego. We are terrified of the dissolution of this self, whether it is the death of the body or the death of a cherished identity like a marriage or partnership. The teaching of anatta is an invitation to shift our identity from the fragile wave to the boundless ocean. The heartbreak, the shattering of the ego, is a terrifying and painful crash. But in that very dissolution, there is an opportunity. For a moment, the illusion of the separate wave is gone, and we have the chance to experience our true nature, vast, interconnected, and whole. This can be a frightening idea. If there is no me, what is the point? Who is it that is living this life? This is not nihilism. In fact, it is the ultimate liberation. The separate self, this ego we work so hard to build and defend, is the source of all our insecurity. It is the self that feels offended. It is the self that feels lonely. It is the self that feels it is not good enough. It is a tireless, anxious tyrant. To see through its illusory nature is to be released from this prison. Of course, a conventional self remains. There is still a person who breathes, who eats, who talks with friends. Anatta does not deny our functional existence. It simply reveals that this functional self is a temporary process. not a permanent reality. The freedom is this: if there is no solid, separate target, what can life's arrows truly wound? If our true nature is the entire ocean, how can the dissolving of one small wave be a true catastrophe? This is not an intellectual concept to be believed, but a lived reality to be discovered through quiet observation. It is the discovery that when we let go of who we think we are, we open up to the boundless reality of what we truly are. This understanding, however, leads to another critical question. If the self is an illusion, what are these powerful, sticky memories and stories that we cling to? The ones that feel so intensely personal and cause us so much pain. Having seen through the illusion of a solid, separate self, we are faced with a perplexing situation. If there is no permanent me at the center of our being, then what is this powerful force that glues our experiences together and creates such a convincing and often painful sense of identity? The answer lies in the power of narrative. The human mind is, above all else, a storytelling machine. It is a narrator living in our skull, and its primary job is to take the chaotic, disconnected stream of life's events and weave them into a coherent plot. This is a vital survival mechanism. It helps us make sense of the world, learn from the past, and plan for the future. But when the mind's narrative function goes unchecked, especially in the wake of a trauma like heartbreak, it becomes our most prolific and intimate tormentor. The suffering we experience, long after the initial shock of the first arrow, is not caused by the event itself, but by the burden of the stories we relentlessly tell ourselves about it. After a relationship ends, this inner narrator goes into overdrive, working tirelessly to explain the inexplicable pain. It produces stories of different genres, all of them compelling, all of them seductive, and all of them a source of profound suffering. The first genre is a form of historical fiction, focused on rewriting the past. Here we find the if-only epic. In this narrative, we become a time-traveling detective, combing through the archives of our memory, searching for the crucial error, the fatal mistake. If only I had been more affectionate. If only I hadn't been so needy. If only I had seen how unhappy they were. We construct alternate timelines where one different choice would have saved everything, leading to a blissful present. This story is a form of mental self-flagellation, a pointless argument with a past that is irrevocably gone. Closely related is the Golden Age myth. In this story, the mind acts as a masterful film editor, selectively cutting out every argument, every moment of boredom, every unresolved conflict, and splicing together only the highlight reel. It creates a narrative of a perfect, lost paradise, a love of mythical proportions. This burnished, idealized memory then becomes the standard against which our bleak present is judged, ensuring that we feel its lack all the more acutely. The second genre our mind produces is a kind of apocalyptic fiction, focused on a terrifying future. The most common narrative here is the Forever Alone saga. This story takes the very real pain of present loneliness and projects it onto an infinite timeline. No one will ever love me like that again. I'm too old, damaged, complicated to find someone else. This was my one chance at happiness, and I ruined it. The mind writes a bleak prophecy and then forces us to live inside of it, experiencing the suffering of a desolate future right here in the present moment. It is a ghost story where we are haunted by a future that has not yet happened, but perhaps the most toxic genre is that of character assassination, where the protagonist and the villain are one and the same. You. This is the story of the fundamentally flawed self. The breakup is no longer an event that happened. It becomes the central piece of evidence in a lifelong legal case proving our own unworthiness. The narrator's voice becomes cold and judgmental. Of course they left you. Who could love someone so broken? You are not enough, and you never have been. This story takes the external pain and internalizes it, turning it into the very core of our identity. We become trapped in a biography, written by our own harshest critic. In Zen, there is a famous story that perfectly illustrates this predicament. Two monks, one senior and one junior, were on a long journey. They came to a river where a beautiful young woman stood, afraid to cross for fear of ruining her fine clothes. Without a word, the senior monk hoisted the woman onto his shoulders, carried her across the swirling water, and set her down gently on the other side. He then continued his journey. The junior monk followed, his mind in turmoil. He was scandalized. Their monastic vows strictly forbade them from touching a woman. For hours, he walked behind his master, fuming. He replayed the scene in his mind, judging his master's recklessness, his impiety. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, he burst out, "Master, how could you do that? You know we are not permitted to touch a woman, yet you carried her across the river." The senior monk stopped, looked at his young companion with compassion, and replied softly, "I left the woman by the riverbank hours ago. Are you still carrying her?" We are almost always the junior monk. The event, the breakup, the loss, the hurtful word is the woman at the river. It happens, and it is over, but we refuse to leave it on the riverbank. We pick it up and carry it with us. We turn it into a story of blame, of regret, of injustice, of our own failure. This story becomes an immense weight, a burden that exhausts our spirit and poisons our present moment. The practice of Zen is the practice of learning to put the woman down. It is the art of recognizing our stories as stories, not as reality. The first step is simply recognition. When you feel that familiar ache, that tightening in your chest, pause. Ask yourself, what story is my mind telling me right now? Give it a name. This is the if-only story. This is the forever alone saga again. I see. This is the I'm not good enough narrative. Simply by identifying the story as a story, you create a space between you and it. You shift from being the main character, lost in the plot, to being the audience, watching the film. The second step is to consciously return to reality. The stories are always about the past or the future, two places that do not exist. The only reality is this present moment. The most direct way to return here is through the senses. What are three things you can see right now? The pattern of wood grain on a table, the way light falls on the floor, the color of your own hands. What are two things you can hear? The distant sound of traffic, the hum of your own breathing. What can you feel? The pressure of your feet on the ground, the texture of your clothes against your skin. The body is always in the present moment. Dropping out of the narrative in your head and into the sensations of your body is like dropping a heavy anchor in a storm. The anchor is your breath. The simple, physical, non-conceptual reality of the air moving in and out of your lungs is the ultimate refuge from the fictional worlds of the mind. As the practice deepens, you stop being so interested in the content of the stories. You become more interested in the process of storytelling itself. You can observe your mind and see, there it goes again. The narrator is spinning another tale. You can watch it with a kind of detached amusement, the way you might watch a hyperactive child. You don't need to believe it. You don't need to argue with it. You just see it for what it is. A conditioned mental habit. The mind tells stories in the same way the stomach digests food. It is simply its function. You are not your digestion, and you are not your stories. The freedom lies in this realization. The stories will still arise, but they no longer have the same power over you. They are clouds passing through the sky, not the sky itself. You are learning to leave the woman at the riverbank, to let go of the heavy burden of the past, and to walk into the freshness of each new moment, unencumbered. This repeated experience of emotions being impermanent, of the self being an impermanent process, of our stories being impermanent mental events, points us toward a great, universal truth. To find a truly unshakable peace, we must now turn our gaze to this law that governs all of existence, the profound reality of impermanence itself. Having journeyed inward to witness the transient nature of our emotions, the illusion of a solid self, and the fleeting reality of our own stories, we arrive at the bedrock of all these truths. We arrive at the universal law that governs everything, from the life of a star to the duration of a single breath. This is the teaching of anicca, or impermanence. To the Western ear, the word impermanence can sound like a sad decree, a lament for the fact that nothing good ever lasts. It can feel like a philosophy of pessimism, but in the context of Zen wisdom, this is a profound misunderstanding. The truth of impermanence is not a flaw in the design of reality. It is the very rhythm of reality itself. It is the dynamic, creative, ceaseless flow of existence. Our suffering, especially the acute suffering of a broken heart, does not arise from the fact that things change. It arises from our demand that they stay the same. It is the pain of building a fortress on the shifting sands of a riverbank, and then weeping when the current inevitably washes it away. To truly grasp the wisdom of impermanence, we must learn to see it everywhere, in the grand sweep of the cosmos, and in the intimate details of our own lives. Look to the natural world. A mountain, the very symbol of solidity, is being subtly worn down by millennia of wind and rain. The great forests of the earth rise from tiny seeds and will one day return to soil. A flower achieves a moment of perfect, breathtaking beauty, and in that very perfection, its process of decay has already begun. The seasons turn, the weather shifts, the sun rises and sets. Nature is a constant, powerful sermon on the truth of change. So too are all human creations. Great empires that once seemed invincible are now dust and archaeological footnotes. The cities we live in are in a constant state of demolition and reconstruction. The technology we use today will be obsolete tomorrow. Everything we can touch, build, or achieve is subject to this fundamental law. But it is when we turn this lens of contemplation inward that the teaching becomes truly personal and transformative. Consider your own body. It is not a static object, but a river of processes. You are not the same person you were a decade ago, a year ago, or even a moment ago. Billions of your cells have died and been replaced since you began reading this sentence. Every breath is a miniature lesson in impermanence. It arises, it lingers for a moment, and it dissolves. This body, which feels so solid and so fundamentally me, is the primary evidence of anicca in our lives. Our mind is no different. As we have seen, our thoughts and feelings are in constant flux. Joy arrives, and it feels as though it will last forever, but it passes. Despair descends, and it feels like an eternal prison, but it too will change. A strongly held opinion from our youth now seems naive. A fierce ambition from 5 years ago has now softened into a quiet memory. The mind is a torrent of changing phenomena. Now, consider the relationship that has ended. Our instinct is to think of it as a solid thing, a beautiful vase that has been shattered, but it was never a static object. A relationship is a living process, a dance between two evolving systems. It had a beginning, a fragile, hopeful phase of discovery. It had a period of growth and deepening connection. It may have reached a peak of harmony and intimacy, and then, as all processes do, it began to change. Conditions shifted inside and outside of the two people involved. It entered a phase of decay, and eventually, it came to an end. To see the relationship not as a broken thing, but as a completed processor dance that has finished. A song that has been sung is a profound shift in perspective. It does not erase the pain of the ending, but it places it within the natural, universal context of flow and change. This is where the truly good news of impermanence reveals itself. This is where the teaching transforms from a stark observation into a source of profound comfort and liberation. For someone with a broken heart, the most important implication of anicca is this: your pain is not permanent. The crushing weight of grief, the sharp sting of loneliness, the desolate emptiness, these feelings are not a life sentence. They feel all-consuming right now, as if they have become the very substance of your being. But the law of impermanence guarantees that this is not true. This too shall pass. The intensity will soften. The character of the sadness will change. The emotional storm will eventually give way to moments of calm, and those moments will grow longer and more frequent. This is not a hopeful platitude. It is a promise backed by the fundamental nature of reality. Clinging to this truth can be a lifeline in the darkest of nights. Furthermore, impermanence means you are not chained to your past. The mistakes you made, the regrets you carry, the person you were in the relationship, these are not a permanent brand on your soul. Because everything changes, you are, in this very moment, new. You have the capacity to learn, to grow, and to act in new ways. The past is a memory, but you are a living, breathing process, happening right now. Perhaps the most beautiful gift of deeply understanding impermanence is how it transforms our relationship to joy. When you truly know that everything is fleeting, you learn to cherish the present moment. You savor the warmth of a cup of tea because you know it is cooling. You listen to a piece of music with your full attention because you know the final note is coming. You appreciate the presence of a loved one with a deeper tenderness because you are not blinded by the illusion that they will be there forever. When you let go of the demand for permanence, you are free to love the world and the people in it with an open, grateful heart, celebrating the beauty of what is, precisely because it will not last. There is a powerful Buddhist story that illustrates this journey from resistance to acceptance. A young woman named Kintsugi lost her only child, an infant son. Mad with grief, she refused to accept his death. She carried his small body through her village, going from house to house, begging for a medicine that could bring him back to life. People pitied her, thinking she had lost her mind. Finally, someone directed her to the Buddha. She laid her son at his feet and pleaded for help. The Buddha looked at her with immense compassion and gave her a task. "There is only one medicine that can help," he said. "Go and bring me a single mustard seed from a house where no one, a parent, a child, a spouse, or a servant has ever died." Filled with hope, Kintsugi began her search. At the first house, a kind family offered her a handful of mustard seeds. But when she asked if anyone in their home had ever died, they looked at her sadly and said, "The living are few, but the dead are many." Last year, our beloved grandfather passed away. She went to the next house, and the next, and the next. The story was always the same. Everyone was willing to help, but every family had been touched by loss. House by house, the truth began to dawn on her. Her unbearable, personal sorrow was not unique. It was a universal condition. Loss was not an accident. but an inseparable part of the fabric of life. Her frantic, clinging grief began to transform into a deep, quiet understanding. She returned to the Buddha, not with a mustard seed, but with a peaceful heart. She had understood the truth of impermanence. This is the path that is offered to us, to see that our loss, as personal and painful as it is part of the great, flowing river of life. The wisdom of Anika is not a grim resignation to loss. It is a courageous alignment with reality. It is the understanding that allows us to find peace, not by trying to stop the river, but by learning to gracefully flow with it. But this leads to a vital, practical question. If everything and everyone is impermanent, how can we possibly love without constantly living in fear of loss? How do we hold someone dear without clinging to them, having awakened to the profound truth of impermanence? We find ourselves standing at a precipice. If everything is transient, if all forms, feelings, and relationships are destined to dissolve like sandcastles before the tide, then how are we to love? It seems we are presented with an impossible choice, either to barricade our hearts against future pain by refusing to love at all, becoming cold and detached, or to love fully, knowing that we are setting ourselves up for the inevitable devastation of loss. This is the great dilemma that a broken heart presents. But Zen wisdom reveals that this is a false choice, a dichotomy born of a fundamental misunderstanding of love itself. The path forward is not a retreat into emotional asceticism, nor is it a blind march into repeated suffering. The path is a radical re-envisioning of what it means to love. It is the subtle, liberating art of loving without clinging. For most of us, what we call love is inextricably entangled with its shadow, attachment. Attachment is the clenched fist of the ego. It is rooted in a feeling of inner poverty, a sense of lack. The separate self, feeling small and incomplete, seeks to acquire people and experiences to make itself feel whole, secure, and happy. The other person ceases to be a free, autonomous being on their own journey. They become a project, a possession, an object that is vital for my happiness. This is the language of attachment. I can't live without you. You complete me. You are my everything. This perspective, while romanticized in our culture, is the very seed of suffering. It places an impossible burden on the other person to be the constant source of our well-being. It turns love into a transaction, a conditional state where our affection is contingent on our needs being met. And because it is based on the fear of losing that source of happiness, it becomes the engine of jealousy, anxiety, control, and possessiveness. When the relationship ends, the pain is so catastrophic because the ego feels it has lost not just a person, but a vital part of itself, the very key to its own contentment. True love, as envisioned in the Zen path, is the opposite of this. It is the open hand. It does not arise from a place of lack, but from a place of fullness. It is not about what we can get, but about what we can offer. The Pali language has beautiful words for this kind of love, like metta, which is a universal, unconditional loving kindness, and karuna, which is compassion, the active wish for another to be free from suffering. This love flows outward. It is a generous, boundless warmth that wants nothing more than the happiness and freedom of the other, without any conditions. It is a love that says, I wish for you to be happy, whether your happiness includes me or not. This is a radical, courageous, and deeply liberating stance. It honors the other person as a whole, sovereign being, on their own path. It is a love that can hold someone dear without needing to put them in a cage. Think of how you would hold a small, wild bird that has landed in your palm. If you clutch it tightly, if you try to possess it, you will crush it or frighten it away. Your anxiety to keep it will destroy the very thing you admire. The only way to truly experience the gift of its presence is to hold your hand open, still and gentle, allowing the bird to rest there of its own free will and to fly away when it is ready. This is the heart of non-attachment. It is not a cold indifference. It is a warm, spacious, and trusting presence. Similarly, imagine holding a handful of dry sand. The moment you clench your fist to secure it, it begins to pour out through the cracks between your fingers. The tighter you squeeze, the more you lose. But if you simply rest it in your open palm, it can remain. Our joys, our memories, and the people we love are like this sand. Our desperate attempt to grasp them, to make them permanent, is the very action that ensures we lose them and suffer in the process. This principle applies not only to the person who has left, but also to the memories of the love you shared. Attachment to memory keeps us trapped in the past. We endlessly replay the highlight reel, the golden age, and this constant comparison makes our present reality feel barren and empty. We are like the junior monk, still carrying the burden of what was. Loving our memories without attachment is different. It is like looking at a treasured photo album. We can open it, look at the images with warmth and gratitude for the happiness we experienced. We can say, "That was a beautiful gift. I am so grateful for that time." And then, we can gently close the album and return our full attention to the life that is happening right now, in this moment. The past becomes a source of gentle warmth, not a painful ghost that haunts the present. It is crucial to understand that non-attachment is not a lack of feeling. It is the opposite. It is the capacity to feel more fully, more deeply, because we are not paralyzed by the fear of loss. The attached heart is anxious, always guarding its possessions. The non-attached heart is open, vulnerable, and free. It can engage with life completely. It can love with a fierce tenderness, precisely because it is not demanding anything in return. It is the love of a gardener who tends her flowers with immense care, knowing that their bloom is temporary and finding beauty in their entire life cycle, from bud to blossom to decay. It is the love of a parent who pours everything into their child, with the ultimate goal that the child will one day be strong enough to leave and live their own independent life. The joy is in the flourishing of the other, not in their continued presence or dependence. To practice this in the midst of heartbreak is the work of a spiritual warrior. It is to sit with the pain of loss, and from that wounded place, to find the generosity to silently wish the other person well, not to condone any harm they may have done, but for the sake of your own freedom. Holding on to anger and resentment is to remain tethered to them with a chain of poison. Releasing them with a wish for their peace is to cut that chain and liberate yourself. It is to shift from the clenched fist of, "You took my happiness," to the open hand of, "I wish you happiness on your journey." This is the ultimate act of self-compassion. It is the recognition that your own peace is not dependent on anyone else. It is a declaration of your own inner wholeness. But to truly embody this open-handed love, to trust in it completely, we must go even deeper. We must investigate the very nature of the hand that holds and the sand that is held. To let go so completely requires the wisdom to see that, in a fundamental sense, there was never anything solid to cling to in the first place. This requires a journey into the most profound and subtle teaching of all, the truth of emptiness. To love with an open hand, to release our grasp on that which is by nature ungraspable, requires a profound trust in the flow of life. It requires us to see beyond the surface of things and to understand the very substance of what we are trying to hold. This brings us to a teaching that is arguably the most subtle, the most profound, and the most liberating in all of Zen Buddhism, the wisdom of shunyata, or emptiness. When we first hear this word, our minds might recoil. Emptiness sounds like a cold, desolate void, a cosmic nothingness. It seems to negate life, to suggest that nothing matters. But this is a fundamental misinterpretation. In the Zen context, emptiness does not mean non-existence. It means the absence of a separate, independent, isolated existence. It is a synonym for the ultimate truth of interconnectedness. It is the understanding that nothing exists on its own, by itself. Everything in the universe is with everything else. To understand this is to dismantle the very foundation of our loneliness and our sense of personal failure. Let us begin with a simple object, like a teacup. What is a teacup? We can say it is made of clay, but the clay did not arise from nothing. It came from the earth, which was formed over eons. A potter took the clay and shaped it. The potter used water to make the clay malleable, and this water came from the rain, which fell from a cloud, which formed from evaporated moisture from a lake or ocean. To shape the cup, the potter used their hands and a wheel, tools that were themselves created from other materials. The potter had parents and teachers who taught them this craft. The design of the cup was influenced by their culture and the history of art. The cup was then fired in a kiln, which was heated by fuel and built from materials mined from the earth. When we look deeply into this simple teacup, we can see the entire universe. We see the sun, the cloud, the rain, the earth. We see the potter and all their ancestors. We see the history of human civilization. The teacup is not an isolated object. It is a nexus, a meeting point for the entire cosmos. It is full of everything. It is empty of only one thing, a separate, independent self. It cannot exist apart from everything that created it. Now, let's consider its function. What makes a teacup useful? It is the empty space inside. If it were a solid block of clay, it would be useless as a cup. Its very function, its purpose, is defined by its emptiness. This empty space is what allows it to receive, to hold, to offer. The great Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh, explained this with the beautiful example of a single sheet of paper. If we look at this sheet of paper, we can see a cloud floating in it. Why? Because without a cloud, there is no rain. Without rain, the trees cannot grow. And without trees, we cannot make paper. So the cloud is essential for the paper's existence. If we look deeper, we can also see the sunshine that nourished the tree. We can see the logger who cut the tree down, and we can see the wheat that made the bread for the logger's breakfast. We can see the logger's parents and their parents. We can see the steel in the saw, which came from a mine. We can see the ingenuity of the people who designed the factory. The sheet of paper is a manifestation of countless causes and conditions. It is here only because everything else is here. It is empty of a separate self. The paper is with the cloud. It is with the sunshine. It is with the logger. Now, let us turn this gentle, illuminating gaze upon ourselves. You, too, are empty in this beautiful, interconnected way. You are not now, nor have you ever been, a separate, isolated entity. Your body is made of the food you have eaten, which is a gift from the sun, the earth, and the rain. You are made of the air you are breathing in this very moment. Your mind is filled with language, ideas, and concepts that you received from your family, your teachers, and your culture. Your very identity has been shaped by every interaction you have ever had, every kindness received, every wound sustained. You are a product of your ancestors, of the planet, of the entire history of the universe. To see yourself in this way is not to be diminished, but to be expanded infinitely. You are not a lonely fragment. You are a unique expression of the entire cosmos. With this understanding, let us look again at the relationship that has ended. That relationship, too, was empty of a solid, independent existence. It was not a thing that you owned and have now lost. It was a process, a temporary and beautiful weather pattern that was created when your stream of conditions met and mingled with your partner's stream of conditions. It was nourished by shared laughter, by compassionate listening, by physical touch. It was also shaped by external conditions, jobs, families, the society you lived in. And like any weather system, when the underlying conditions changed as they always do, the pattern shifted. The streams that once flowed as one have now diverged. To see it this way is to move from the violent narrative of breakage and loss to the gentle, natural language of process and change. The pain is still real, but its meaning is transformed. The end of the relationship is no longer a personal failure, a rejection of your solid self by their solid self. It is a dissolution of a temporary set of conditions. This perspective lessens the sting of blame and shame. Who is there to blame when you see that both you and your partner were simply expressions of countless causes and conditions, doing the best you could with the understanding you had at the time? The realization of emptiness is the ultimate antidote to loneliness. Loneliness is the suffering of the separate self, the pain of feeling like an isolated fragment in a vast universe. But when you see through this illusion, when you realize your profound interconnection with all that is, the concept of being alone becomes meaningless. How can you be alone when the entire universe is flowing through you in this very moment? The person who left is not truly gone. The energy of their presence, the lessons you learned, the ways they changed you for better or for worse have become part of the stream of your own being. In an interconnected reality, nothing is ever truly lost. It only changes form. This is the vast, open space that emptiness reveals. It is not a black hole, but a boundless web of relationship. It is the truth that we are all, in a very real sense, woven from the same cosmic fabric. Seeing this does not erase the sadness of a parting, but it holds that sadness in a much larger, more compassionate context. It takes the sharp, personal, ego-driven agony of a broken heart and bathes it in the gentle, universal light of wisdom. It allows us to begin to heal, not by rebuilding the walls of our separate self, but by realizing that those walls were never there to begin with. This deep understanding of a universe governed by a web of cause and effect, of interbeing, naturally raises a crucial question. If everything is connected and arises from prior conditions, what is our own part in weaving this web? What is the role of our own actions, words, and thoughts in creating the conditions that lead to our happiness or our suffering? This inquiry leads us directly to the practical, moral dimension of interconnectedness, the law of karma. Having journeyed through the vast, interconnected web of existence revealed by the teaching of emptiness, we see that nothing happens in a vacuum. Every event, every form, every feeling is a ripple in an infinite ocean of cause and effect. This naturally leads us to a more personal, more intimate question. What is our own role in this intricate dance? If our life is a product of causes and conditions, how do our own choices, thoughts, and actions contribute to the reality we experience? This inquiry brings us to the Buddhist teaching of karma. In the West, the word karma is often misunderstood. It is frequently seen as a kind of cosmic ledger, a system of divine reward and punishment, where good deeds are rewarded with good fortune, and bad deeds are met with supernatural retribution. But the authentic teaching of karma is far less mystical and infinitely more empowering. It is not a system of cosmic justice. It is the universal, natural law of intentional action. The Buddha's definition was precise and psychological. He said, "It is intention, monks, that I call karma. For having intended, one acts by body, speech, and mind. Karma is not the external event that happens to us. It is the quality of the intention that fuels our actions. It is the seed, not the fruit." This law is as impersonal and reliable as the law of gravity. If you plant an acorn, you will not get a rose bush. You will get an oak tree. There is no judgment involved. It is simply the nature of the seed. In the same way, if we plant seeds of greed, hatred, and delusion in our mind, the fruit will inevitably be suffering, for ourselves and for others. If we plant seeds of generosity, kindness, and wisdom, the fruit will be well-being and peace. The pain of a broken heart, when seen through the lens of karma, is not a punishment for past misdeeds. It is the natural, predictable ripening of seeds that were planted long ago. This is a delicate investigation, and it must be undertaken with immense self-compassion. The goal is not to heap blame upon our already wounded selves, but to gain insight into the mechanics of our own suffering, so that we may begin to change them. Let us look back, not with judgment, but with gentle curiosity. What seeds did we plant during the course of the relationship that have now ripened into this painful harvest? Perhaps we planted seeds of attachment. We looked to our partner to be the sole source of our happiness, our security, our self-worth. This clinging, this conditional need, is a seed of suffering, for when the object of our attachment is removed, the painful fruit of lack and despair is all that remains. Perhaps we planted seeds of expectation. We carried into the relationship a fixed idea of how our partner should be, how the relationship should look, and how our future should unfold. These rigid expectations were seeds sown in the soil of impermanence. When the reality of change inevitably collided with our inflexible demands, the harvest was disappointment and bitterness. Perhaps we planted seeds of reaction. In moments of conflict or misunderstanding, did we react with anger, with blame, with silence, or with fear? Each of these reactions was a volitional act, an intentional seed. These seeds not only contributed to the conditions that may have led to the relationship's end, but they also strengthened habitual pathways in our own mind, wiring us for greater suffering. When we repeatedly react with anger, we become more adept at being angry. When we repeatedly indulge in blame, we become experts in seeing faults in others. Again, this is not to say, the breakup was my fault. The universe of causes is far too complex for such a simple verdict. The other person brought their own entire history of karma, their own seeds of intention, to the relationship. The point of this reflection is not to take the blame, but to take responsibility. To take responsibility not for the other person's actions, but for the quality of our own mind, for the seeds that we planted. To recognize our own contribution to the creation of our own suffering is the first step toward reclaiming our power to change it. This is the profound freedom that the teaching of karma offers. It tells us that while we cannot change the past, we are the sole masters of the present. Think of yourself as a farmer. You are standing in a field where the harvest has failed. The stalks are withered, the grain is blighted. This is the fruit of last season's seeds and last season's weather. It is your ripened karma. You can spend your days weeping and wailing, cursing the old seeds you planted, or blaming the sky for not providing enough rain. But none of this will change the fact that the harvest has failed. This is the reality of your present moment, and it must be accepted. However, in your hand, you hold a bag of new seeds. You have the absolute power, right now, to choose what you will plant for the next season. You can choose to plant more of the same blighted seeds of anger, resentment, and self-pity. Or you can choose to plant new seeds of mindfulness, forgiveness, and compassion. Your future harvest, the quality of your future mind, depends entirely on the choice you make today. Every moment of our lives, we are planting these seeds. When you find yourself lost in a painful story about the past, and you gently guide your attention back to the simple sensation of your breath, you are planting a seed of presence. When the urge arises to vilify your former partner, and instead you silently wish them peace, for the sake of your own freedom, you are planting a seed of loving kindness. When the inner critic whispers that you are worthless, and you meet that voice, not with belief, but with a gentle acknowledgement of your own pain, you are planting a seed of radical self-compassion. When you perform a small, unprompted act of generosity for someone else, you are planting a seed of connection and joy. Karma is not a passive destiny we must endure. It is an active, creative process in which we are constantly engaged. It is the ultimate teaching of agency and hope. It tells us that no matter how bleak our present harvest may be, our future is not written in stone. We are not prisoners of our past. We are the architects of our future, one intentional thought, one intentional word, one intentional action at a time. By taking responsibility for the seeds we plant, we cease to be victims of our lives and become the cultivators of our own hearts. This empowering realization brings us to the most practical of questions. If we are to be this farmer, diligently planting seeds for a future harvest of peace, where, precisely, is our field? The past is gone. We cannot plant there. The future has not arrived. It is merely a concept. The only soil we have to work with, the only moment where a new seed can ever be sown, is the fertile ground of right now. As the cultivators of our own hearts, we have seen that the only field where we can plant new seeds of peace and well-being is the present moment. This is not merely a philosophical concept. It is the most practical and urgent truth for anyone navigating the turbulent waters of heartbreak. To be heartbroken is to be in a state of self-imposed exile from the now. The mind, reeling from the shock of loss, abandons the present and takes up residence in two painful, imaginary realms, the past and the future. When we are not there, we are somewhere else, and that somewhere else is almost always a place of suffering. Our mind becomes a haunted house, where we wander as ghosts through the cold rooms of the past. We sift through memories, replaying conversations, searching for clues, for the exact moment where things went wrong. We become tireless editors of our own history, creating endless versions of the if-only story. The mind whispers, if only you had been different, this wouldn't have happened. It becomes a courtroom where we are both prosecutor and defendant, endlessly trying a case that has already been closed. Or it becomes a museum of perfect moments, where we gaze longingly at a past that has been airbrushed into an impossible, golden ideal. In these moments, Our body is here, but our consciousness, our very life force, is trapped in a time that no longer exists. When we exhaust ourselves with this haunting of the past, the mind catapults us into an equally terrifying, imagined future. It becomes a tireless author of apocalyptic fiction. It writes vivid, detailed stories of a future devoid of love, a future of permanent loneliness. It asks, what if I never get over this? What if I never find anyone else? What if I am alone for the rest of my life? It creates a catastrophe and then immerses us in it, forcing us to feel the anxiety and despair of a future that has not happened and may never happen. We are living in a state of dread, mourning a future loss that is purely a creation of our own minds. The tragic result of this time travel is that the present moment, the only place where life is actually occurring, is left vacant. The taste of our food, the warmth of the sun on our skin, the sound of a bird singing outside our window, the simple act of breathing, all of it goes unnoticed. Life is streaming by, and we are missing it because we are busy being ghosts in the past and prophets of a doomed future. Modern neuroscience has confirmed what the great spiritual traditions have taught for millennia. A wandering mind is an unhappy mind. The present moment, in its raw simplicity, is our only true home, our only place of genuine refuge. The practice of mindfulness, then, is the practice of coming home. It is the gentle, repeated, and compassionate act of returning from the imaginary worlds of past and future to the living reality of the here and now. But how do we make this journey back? The gateways are our senses. While the mind can travel through time, the body is always, unequivocally, in the present. To connect with your senses is to drop an anchor in the now. You can do this at any time. Feel the solid ground beneath your feet. Notice the actual, physical sensation of your body sitting in a chair, the pressure, the weight. Listen to the sounds around you without judging or naming them. Just let the vibrations of sound wash over your awareness. Look at an ordinary object in front of you and see it as if for the first time, noticing its color, texture, and form. To engage your senses is to pull your awareness out of the churning vortex of thought and into the simple, solid reality of what is. The Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh, taught this with a beautiful, simple story about washing the dishes. He observed that most of us wash the dishes while thinking about something else. We are planning the rest of our evening, or rehashing an argument, or worrying about tomorrow. We see washing the dishes as an obstacle, a chore to be rushed through so we can get to the more pleasant task of, say, drinking a cup of tea. But, he pointed out, if we are incapable of being present and alive while washing the dishes, what makes us think we will be present and alive while drinking the tea? While drinking the tea, our mind will already be on to the next thing, and the next. Our entire life becomes a series of moments that we rush through in order to get somewhere else. We end up never truly arriving anywhere at all. The practice, he taught, is this. While washing the dishes, just wash the dishes. This means being fully aware of the experience. Feel the warmth of the water on your hands. Smell the scent of the soap. Hear the sound of the plate being scrubbed clean. Notice the miracle that is a clean plate. In that moment, washing the dishes is not a chore. It is a meditation. It is an opportunity to be fully, vibrantly alive. And this is true for every moment. When you are walking, just walk. Feel your feet connecting with the earth. When you are listening to a friend, just listen. Give them the full gift of your undivided presence. Each moment, no matter how mundane, becomes an opportunity to come home. Why is the present moment a refuge? because in the raw, unfiltered reality of the now, we are almost always okay. In this precise second, as you are sitting here, is the painful event actually happening? Are you actually being abandoned in this very instant? In this moment, there is the feeling of your body breathing. There is the light in the room. There are sounds. The suffering is not in the moment itself. It is in our thoughts about the moment, our thoughts about the past and the future. Our thoughts are the source of the attack. When we drop out of the realm of conceptual thought and into the direct, sensory experience of the present, we step out from under the torrential downpour of our own painful narratives. It is not that the pain magically disappears forever, but in this one moment, there can be a space of peace, a moment of safety. And these moments, stitched together by our gentle effort, become the foundation of our healing. The present moment is the only place in the universe where we are safe from the ghosts of our own minds. So we see that the past is a memory, a ghost. The future is a fantasy, a dream. The only time we are ever alive, the only place we can ever find peace or plant a seed of change, is right here, right now. Coming home to the present, again and again and again, is the most direct and powerful path to healing a broken heart. But the pull of the past and future is strong, like a powerful current. To stay present, we need a reliable anchor, something simple and always available to us, something that can effortlessly bring us back home whenever we notice we have drifted away. That ever-present, life-sustaining anchor is the gentle rhythm of our own breath. We have arrived at the understanding that the present moment is our only true refuge, the only ground upon which we can stand and find our footing amidst the chaos of a broken heart. The past is a realm of ghosts, the future a land of phantoms, and our mind is a tireless time traveler, pulling us into these painful, imaginary worlds. To find peace, we must come home to the here and now. But the currents of habit are strong, and the pull of grief is powerful. We need an anchor, something simple, reliable, and always with us, to hold us steady in the present when the winds of sorrow and fear begin to blow. That anchor is the breath. It is the most intimate and loyal companion we will ever have. It is with us from our first moment of life until our very last, a constant, gentle rhythm beneath the noise of our thoughts and the drama of our lives. To cultivate a relationship with our own breath is to discover the most powerful and accessible tool for healing. The practice of mindfulness of breathing, known as anapanasati in the ancient Pali language, is deceptive in its simplicity. In a world that prizes complexity and effort, the instruction to simply watch your breath can seem too easy, too passive to possibly make a difference. We may feel we should be doing something more, analyzing our feelings, solving our problems, fixing our pain. But the genius of this practice lies in its profound simplicity. The breath is the bridge between our conscious and unconscious worlds. It is an automatic, bodily function, yet we can also control it at will. It is the meeting point of mind and body. As such, it is the most direct and skillful means we have to influence our own inner state. To begin this practice, you need nothing but the intention to be kind to yourself for a few moments. Find a comfortable position, perhaps sitting in a chair, with your back straight, but not stiff, in a posture that embodies both dignity and ease. You can gently close your eyes, or simply lower your gaze. The first invitation is to simply notice that you are breathing. Without changing anything, can you locate the physical sensation of the breath in your body? For some, the sensation is clearest at the tip of the nostrils, feeling the cool air enter and the warm air leave. For others, it is in the chest, feeling the subtle expansion and contraction. For others still, it is in the abdomen, feeling the gentle rise and fall. There is no right or wrong place to focus. Simply choose one spot and allow your attention to rest there, as a butterfly might rest on a flower. The core instruction is simply this: observe. You are not thinking about the breath, you are feeling it. You are not judging it as good or bad, deep or shallow. You are not trying to control it or make it more spiritual. You are simply allowing the body to breathe itself, and your job is to be the silent, curious, and friendly witness to this natural process. Feel the entire journey of one in-breath. Feel the entire journey of one out-breath. Inevitably, your mind will wander. This is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that you have a normal human mind. The mind's job is to think, just as the heart's job is to beat. It will drift off into a memory, a worry, a plan, or a fantasy. The moment you recognize, "Oh, my mind has wandered," that is a moment of pure mindfulness. In that moment, you have woken up from the dream of thought. The practice is not to prevent the mind from wandering, which is impossible. The practice is what you do in the moment you notice it has wandered. The instruction is to be kind. Without any scolding or frustration, you gently acknowledge where the mind went. Thinking about the past. And then, like gently taking a lost puppy by the scruff of its neck, you guide your attention back to the anchor of the breath. This is the entire practice. The breath is the home base. The mind wanders away. You notice. You gently return. Over and over and over again. Each time you do this, you are performing a revolutionary act. You are breaking the lifelong habit of being carried away by every thought and emotion. You are strengthening your mindfulness muscle. You are training yourself in patience, in gentleness, and in the quiet power of returning home. As you practice, you will begin to notice the intimate connection between your breath and your emotional state. When you are anxious, your breath is quick, shallow, and located high in the chest. This is the body's alarm system, the signature of the fight or flight response. When you are angry, your breath might be forceful and ragged. When you are sad, it might feel heavy and hitched. By simply resting your attention on the breath as it is and allowing it to naturally calm and deepen, you are sending a powerful signal back to your nervous system. You are telling your body, you are safe. The threat is not here right now. You can stand down. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's natural state of rest, recovery, and healing. Calming the breath directly calms the mind. It is a form of spiritual biofeedback, and it is always at your disposal. In the Zen tradition, the mind is often compared to a wild buffalo, powerful, untamed, and prone to wandering off into dangerous jungles of thought. The meditator is the herder who wants to tame this buffalo. The rope the herder uses is the breath. At first, the practice is simply to tie the buffalo to a strong, sturdy post. The post is the practice of sitting and focusing on the breath. The buffalo will pull, it will thrash, it will strain at the rope, desperate to run off. But the rope and the post are strong. The mind will want to run to the past or the future, but the gentle, persistent attention to the breath keeps it from wandering too far. Over time, simply by being held by this gentle tether, the buffalo begins to calm down. It realizes the post is a safe place. It learns to rest. Eventually, the buffalo is tamed, and its great strength can be used for productive work. Our mind is the same. Through the gentle, unwavering rope of the breath, the wild energy of our grief and anxiety begins to settle. The mind ceases to be a wild beast that drags us through suffering and becomes a powerful and calm ally on our path to healing. Each breath we take is a new beginning. The past, even the last exhalation, is gone forever. The future, even the next inhalation, has not yet arrived. There is only this breath, this present moment. Each in-breath is an affirmation of life, a fresh start, a chance to begin again. And each out-breath is an opportunity to let go. With each exhalation, you can release a little tension from your body. You can release the grip of a painful story. You can let go of what you are carrying. In, new, out, release. This simple rhythm becomes a continuous practice of renewal, a microcosm of the entire journey of healing happening in every moment. The breath, then, is our most constant and faithful teacher. It is the anchor that holds us steady in the refuge of the present. It is the rope that tames the wildness of our minds. It is the gentle rhythm that connects our mind and body and reminds us, moment by moment, that we are alive. By establishing this foundation of inner calm and stability, we are no longer merely surviving the storm of our emotions. We are now in a position to do something even more profound. We are ready to engage with the energy of our pain directly, not just to endure it, but to use it as the very raw material for our own transformation. We are ready to practice the sacred alchemy of turning the dark mud of our suffering into a radiant lotus of wisdom. Having found a place of relative calm and stability through the anchor of the breath, we are no longer completely at the mercy of the storm. We have found a small, dry patch of ground in the midst of the flood. From this new vantage point, we can begin to look at the storm itself in a different light. We can begin to ask a radical question. What if this pain, this grief, this devastation that feels like a curse, is not actually an enemy to be defeated? What if it is, in fact, a gift in a very convincing and painful disguise? What if our suffering is the very raw material needed for our own transformation? This is the path of spiritual alchemy, the profound art of turning the mud of our life into a lotus flower. In the East, the lotus flower is a potent symbol of awakening. Its beauty is not just in its exquisite petals and fragrant scent, but in the story of its growth. The lotus does not grow in a sterile, pristine environment. It does not thrive in clean sand or clear, running water. The lotus seed sprouts only in the thickest, darkest, murkiest mud at the bottom of a pond. This foul, stagnant mud, this darkness, is the essential nutrient for its journey. From this mud, a stem pushes upward, journeying through the dark water until it breaks the surface. And there, in the open air and sunlight, a blossom of immaculate beauty unfolds, its petals unstained by the darkness from which it arose. It does not reject the mud, it transcends it. It uses the very substance of the mud as the fuel for its own glorious becoming. The most profound teaching of the lotus is this: no mud, no lotus. In the same way, the Zen masters teach, no suffering, no wisdom. Our heartbreak, our despair, our loneliness is our mud. It is rich, it is fertile, and it contains everything we need to grow. Our culture teaches us to despise the mud, to clean it off as quickly as possible, to pretend we were never there. We are taught to seek a life free from suffering, but a life without suffering would be a shallow life, a life without depth, without compassion, without true understanding. It is through our direct, intimate encounter with our own mud that the possibility of a lotus-like heart is born. How does this transformation actually happen? Heartbreak is the great softener. Before a profound loss, Our ego can be hard, brittle, and proud. We may believe we have life under control, that we are the masters of our own destiny. We may be wrapped in a subtle shell of arrogance. A broken heart shatters this shell. It is a profoundly humbling experience. It brings us to our knees. This humiliation is not a punishment. It is a grace. It cracks open the hard shell of the ego, allowing a new vulnerability and softness to emerge. A heart that has never been broken cannot know its own true tenderness. From this new, softened ground, the capacity for genuine empathy begins to grow. Before experiencing deep suffering ourselves, we may have felt pity for others in pain, a kind of distant sympathy. But once we have lived in the mud of our own grief, our relationship to the suffering of others is transformed. We see a stranger weeping on a park bench, and we don't just see them, we feel with them. Their pain resonates within the chambers of our own healed wounds. Our personal tragedy becomes a bridge, connecting our heart to the hearts of all beings who have ever suffered. We realize we are part of the great, shared, human family of sorrow and resilience. This deep, resonant empathy, this true compassion, could not have been born without our own intimate journey through the mud. Furthermore, a great loss forces us to ask life's most essential questions. As long as we are comfortable, as long as our external sources of happiness are secure, we rarely feel the need to look deeper. We happily skate on the surface of life. But when the relationship that formed the center of our world is gone, when our primary source of validation and comfort is removed, we are thrown back on ourselves. We are forced to ask, if my happiness cannot be lastingly found in another person, where can it be found? What is the source of a peace that cannot be taken away from me? What truly matters? This desperate, existential inquiry is the engine of all spiritual growth. The pain of the loss is the catalyst that begins the search for a deeper, more authentic wellspring of meaning within our own being. This alchemical process is not passive. It requires our conscious and courageous participation. It begins when we change the fundamental question we are asking. We stop asking, how can I get rid of this pain? And we start asking, what is this pain trying to teach me? This is the pivot from victimhood to agency. This is where we begin to work with the energy of the pain. Instead of resisting it, we can sit with our pain and hold it gently, asking it these questions. What illusions about life and love have you shattered for me? What hidden strengths have I discovered in myself simply by enduring you? What do I truly value? Now that what I thought I valued is gone, how can you, my pain, make me a kinder, more understanding human being? We don't need to find immediate, intellectual answers. We simply live with the questions, allowing the answers to reveal themselves in their own time, through insight and experience. There is a Tibetan Buddhist analogy for this process. The magnificent peacock is said to thrive in forests where poisonous plants grow. It eats these poisons, and through a unique metabolic alchemy, it transforms the toxic substances into the brilliant, iridescent colors of its tail feathers. Our consciousness has this same peacock-like ability. The raw, painful emotions of heartbreak, the anger, the jealousy, the grief, the fear are our poison. If we simply swallow them and let them fester, they will sicken our soul. But if we meet them with the alchemy of mindfulness and compassion, we can transform their potent energy. The fiery energy of anger can be transformed into the energy of clear-seeing wisdom. The isolating energy of grief can be transformed into the energy of profound empathy. The contracted energy of fear can be transformed into the energy of courage. We do not destroy the energy, we transmute it. We use the poison of our experience to grow the beautiful feathers of our own awakened heart. This transformation requires patience, A lotus does not bloom in a day. The peacock does not grow its feathers in an instant. This is a slow, organic, and often hidden process. It happens in the darkness, beneath the surface. Our job is not to force it, not to anxiously dig up the seed to see if it's growing. Our job is to create the right conditions. We tend to the mud of our experience with kindness. We provide the water of our consistent practice. We trust that the seed of our intention to heal and grow is doing its silent, sacred work. The pain of our broken heart, then, is not a sign that our life is over. It is a sign that a deeper life is waiting to begin. It is the sacred mud, the potent poison, the fertile ground for our own becoming, and the very first ingredient in this alchemical process, the catalyst that begins the transformation of mud into lotus, is compassion. The first and most essential place to apply that compassion is to the one who is in the mud, the one who is suffering. It is time to turn toward ourselves with kindness. Having recognized that our suffering is the very mud from which a lotus of wisdom can bloom, and that compassion is the alchemical agent of this transformation, we arrive at the most crucial first step. Before we can extend compassion to the world, before we can find it in our hearts to forgive others, we must first turn that gentle, healing gaze inward. We must learn to offer kindness to the person who needs it most desperately, the one who is so often last in line to receive it, ourselves. In the raw aftermath of a heartbreak, our inner landscape often becomes a brutal and unforgiving place. The voice of the inner critic, which is usually just a background whisper, can become a deafening roar. It is the voice of the second and third arrows, relentlessly attacking us when we are already down. This inner critic is a cruel master. It becomes a tireless prosecutor, presenting an endless stream of evidence for our own inadequacy. It replays our every mistake, magnifies our every flaw. It tells us, you drove them away with your neediness. You weren't exciting enough. You are fundamentally broken, and this is the proof. You are a failure. We would never dream of speaking to a dear friend in such a merciless way. If a friend came to us with a broken heart, we would offer them comfort, reassurance, and unconditional support. Yet, in the privacy of our own minds, we subject ourselves to a form of abuse that we would not tolerate from anyone else. We become our own worst enemy at the precise moment we need to be our own best friend. The practice of metta, or loving kindness, is a direct and powerful antidote to this inner tyranny. It is the conscious, intentional cultivation of a friendly and compassionate attitude towards oneself. There is a simple and profound teaching that comes not from an ancient scripture, but from the pre-flight safety demonstration on every commercial airplane. The flight attendant instructs that in the event of a sudden loss in cabin pressure, oxygen masks will drop from the ceiling. The instruction is always the same. You must secure your own mask first before attempting to help anyone else, even your own child. This is not a lesson in selfishness. It is a lesson in practical wisdom. If you faint from lack of oxygen, you are of no use to anyone. You cannot give what you do not have. Compassion, kindness, and love are the very oxygen of our spiritual and emotional lives. So often, we try to be good to others while we ourselves are suffocating. We try to pour from an empty cup. The practice of self-compassion, of metta for oneself, is the act of putting on your own oxygen mask first. It is the necessary, fundamental step to ensure you have a sustainable source of kindness to offer the world. It is the art of filling your own cup so that it may one day overflow to others. So how do we begin this practice, especially when it feels so foreign and undeserved? We begin simply. Find a quiet place and a comfortable posture. Allow your body to settle, and for a few moments, connect with the gentle rhythm of your breath. Then, you might gently place a hand over the center of your chest, a simple, physical gesture of kindness towards your own heart. Feel the warmth of your hand. Feel the steady, faithful beat of your heart beneath it, a heart that has loved, a heart that is hurting, a heart that is doing its very best to keep you alive. From this place, we begin to silently offer ourselves a few simple phrases. These are not affirmations that we are trying to force ourselves to believe. They are more like wishes, like prayers, like the gentle planting of seeds in the soil of our own mind. The traditional phrases are a good place to start. May I be safe. This is a wish for safety from all outer and inner harm. It is a wish for protection from the world's dangers, but most importantly, for safety from the harsh attacks of our own critical mind. May I be happy. This is a wish for a deep, authentic happiness that is not dependent on external people or circumstances. It is a wish for a sense of inner well-being and contentment. May I be healthy. This is a wish for health in the fullest sense, for a body that is strong, a mind that is clear, and a spirit that is resilient. May I live with ease. This is not a wish for a life without challenges, but for the ability to move through life's inevitable difficulties with a sense of grace, peace, and less struggle. Gently, silently, you repeat these phrases to yourself. You can time them with your breath, letting one phrase ride on the in-breath and the next on the out-breath. May I be safe. May I be happy. There is no need to force any particular feeling. The intention behind the words is what matters. You are making an offering of kindness to yourself. At first, this practice can feel awkward, even ridiculous. The inner critic may shout back, "You don't deserve to be happy. Look at what a mess you've made." A profound sense of unworthiness may surface. This is completely normal. This resistance is a symptom of the very wound we are trying to heal. The instruction is to be compassionate, even toward the resistance. Acknowledge the critical voice with a kind of detached gentleness. Ah, there is the voice of self-judgment. I see you. And then, as best you can, you return to the phrases. The phrases are the medicine. You wouldn't stop taking an antibiotic just because you still felt the symptoms of an infection. In the same way, you continue to offer yourself the medicine of metta, especially when the symptoms of self-criticism are flaring up. With repetition, something remarkable begins to happen. We are, quite literally, rewiring our own brains. Our lifelong habitual pathways of self-criticism are like deep, well-worn ruts in a road. Every time we indulge in self-blame, we make those ruts deeper. The practice of metta is like consciously choosing to carve a new path. Each repetition of the phrases is like a shovel digging a new channel. At first, it's hard work, but with persistence, the new channel of self-compassion becomes deeper, wider, and easier to travel. The old ruts of self-hatred begin to fill in from disuse. We are changing a deeply ingrained habit, and like learning any new skill, it requires patience and consistent practice. Eventually, the practice moves beyond the mere repetition of words. We begin to feel the quality of metta as a warm, benevolent presence in our own hearts. We learn to hold our own pain, sadness, our fear, our loneliness, with the same tenderness and unconditional acceptance we would offer to a beloved child. We become a safe harbor for ourselves. We learn that we do not need to look outside for a savior. We can become our own source of comfort and refuge. The practice of self-compassion builds an inner resource of strength, resilience, and love that is entirely our own, a source of well-being that no one can ever give to us and no one can ever take away. By learning to put on our own oxygen mask first, By diligently filling our own cup with the life-sustaining waters of self-kindness, we establish the foundation upon which all genuine healing is built. We create an inner sanctuary of peace, and from this place of growing fullness, a new and surprising possibility begins to emerge. We may find that we have a few drops of compassion to spare. Our cup begins to overflow, and we can then begin the brave and transformative work of turning this compassionate gaze outward, of extending this kindness even to those who have caused us the greatest pain. Having tended to the wounded garden of our own heart, having planted the first courageous seeds of self-compassion, we arrive at what may seem to be the most impassable mountain on this entire journey. The path now asks us to turn the gentle gaze of our compassion outward toward the very person who caused us this immense pain. The immediate response from the wounded self is one of fierce resistance. Why? Why should I offer kindness to the one who broke my heart? They don't deserve my compassion. What they did was wrong. This reaction is natural. It is understandable, and it is born of a deep sense of justice. But the wisdom of Zen invites us to look at this situation from a radically different perspective. It reveals that the practice of extending compassion to the other is not a gift we give to them. It is the final, crucial step in the act of liberating ourselves. To hold on to anger, resentment, and blame is to live in a prison of our own making. It is to remain emotionally shackled to the person who has already departed from our lives. Each time we replay the hurtful events in our mind, each time we stoke the fires of our own indignation, we are the ones who feel the heat. There is a famous saying, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. While we are consumed by our toxic inner monologue, consumed by our bitterness, the other person is likely living their life, oblivious to the turmoil we are perpetuating within ourselves. We are drinking a vial of poison every day and hoping that they will suffer from it. The practice of compassion for the other is the act of consciously deciding to put down the hot coal. It is the act of refusing to drink the poison for the sake of our own health and freedom. The path to this freedom is not through forcing ourselves to forget or condone what happened. It is through a profound shift in seeing. Right now, we see the person who hurt us as a two-dimensional villain, a monster whose sole intent was to cause us pain. The practice is to soften our gaze and try to see them as a complex, flawed, and suffering human being, just like us. It is the practice of looking for their dukkha. We can sit quietly and reflect. Just like me, this person knows what it is to be afraid. Just like me, this person has experienced disappointment and sadness in their life. Just like me, this person has wounds from their own childhood, insecurities they try to hide, and patterns of behavior they are not even conscious of. Just like me, this person is a product of countless causes and conditions that they did not choose. We can reflect on a simple truth. Truly happy, peaceful, and secure people do not cause great harm to others. Hurt people hurt people. Their hurtful actions, while not excused, can be understood as having sprung from their own confusion, their own fear, their own inner poverty, their own inability to skillfully handle their own suffering. When we begin to see them not as a malicious villain, but as a fellow suffering being, the hard shell of our anger begins to soften. A tiny crack appears, and through that crack, a sliver of compassion can begin to emerge. From this place, we can tentatively begin to extend the practice of metta. After first establishing a strong foundation of loving kindness for ourselves, may I be safe, may I be happy, we can then bring the image of the other person to mind. We acknowledge the pain that this image brings up, and we hold that pain with our own self-compassion. Then, as an experiment, as an act for our own liberation, we can try to offer them the same wishes. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. If this feels impossible, that is okay. It is a sign that our own wounds are still too raw. We can start with someone easier, a neutral person, and work our way outward over time. The goal is not a perfect performance, but a sincere intention. Even to hold the thought, for the sake of my own peace, I wish you well, is a monumental step. There is a powerful story from the life of the Buddha that illustrates this radical compassion. He once encountered a man named Angulimala, a terrifying serial killer who wore a garland made from the fingers of his many victims. He was the embodiment of rage and violence. When Angulimala saw the Buddha walking calmly toward him, he began to run, intending to make the Buddha his next victim. But no matter how fast he ran, he could not catch up to the Buddha, who was just walking at a normal pace. Exasperated, Angulimala shouted, "Stop, monk!" The Buddha, continuing to walk, replied, "I have stopped, Angulimala. It is you who have not stopped." He meant that he had stopped creating the causes of suffering, while Angulimala was still trapped in a cycle of hatred and violence. The Buddha's absolute fearlessness and his boundless compassion, his ability to see not a monster, but a deeply tormented human being, shattered Angulimala's defenses. This compassionate encounter was the catalyst for Angulimala's complete transformation. If it is possible for a human heart to find compassion for a mass murderer, it is surely possible for us to find a seed of compassion for someone who broke our heart. Their actions came not from a place of pure evil, but from a place of their own human blindness. It is absolutely crucial to understand that this practice of compassion is not the same as condoning their actions. It is not about saying, "What you did was okay. Harmful actions are harmful actions." This is also not about forcing a reconciliation. Compassion is an internal state of heart. It is a gift you give to yourself. Forgiveness, in this context, means letting go of the burden of your own resentment. It means canceling a debt, not because the debtor deserves it, but so that you are no longer consumed by the task of being a debt collector. You can fully forgive someone in your heart and, with clear wisdom, also decide that it is not healthy or safe to have them in your life. You can wish them well from a great distance. You are not putting down the hot coal so they can feel better. You are putting it down so your own hands can be free. By undertaking this courageous work, you are performing the final act of reclaiming your own heart. You are declaring that your inner peace is more important than your attachment to being right. You are choosing freedom over the prison of resentment. You are choosing to heal rather than to fester. As you practice this, the toxic charge of your memories begins to neutralize. The story of your heartbreak loses its power to wound you. You are no longer defined by what was done to you. This profound inner cleansing has a powerful effect on your experience of being by yourself. The sharp-edged, painful state of loneliness, which was filled with the ghosts of anger and grief, begins to transform. As the inner space is cleared of resentment, a new quality of aloneness emerges. It is no longer a state of lack, but a state of peace. The painful void of loneliness begins to blossom into the rich and nourishing space of solitude. After the courageous inner work of extending compassion, first to ourselves and then to the one who hurt us, a profound shift occurs in our inner landscape. The noisy, obsessive thoughts of anger and resentment begin to quiet down. The frantic energy of blame begins to dissipate. What we are left with is space, a vast, quiet, empty space. For the unhealed heart, this space is terrifying. It is called loneliness, and it feels like a painful void, a deficiency, a stark reminder of what is missing. The immediate impulse is to fill this void as quickly as possible with noise, with distraction, with work, or, most dangerously, with another relationship, hoping a new person can plaster over the emptiness. But the path of wisdom invites us to pause, to resist this frantic urge, and to look again at this emptiness. It invites us to see that this is not a void to be feared, but a sacred space to be explored. This is the journey of transforming loneliness into solitude. Loneliness and solitude may look the same from the outside, a person who is physically by themselves, but internally, they are universes apart. Loneliness is the poverty of the self. It is the painful feeling of being an incomplete fragment, aching for another person to come and make you whole. It is a state of lack, of neediness. When we are lonely, we look to the world for something to complete us, to validate us, to distract us from our own uncomfortable company. Relationships that are born from loneliness are often built on a foundation of fear, the fear of being alone. They are characterized by a desperate clinging, a hope that the other person can save us from ourselves. Solitude, on the other hand, is the wealth of the self. It is the rich, fulfilling, and peaceful experience of being in your own company. It is not a state of lack, but a state of fullness. It is the feeling of being whole, complete, and sufficient unto yourself. Solitude is not about isolation. It is about a deep and intimate connection with your own being. It is the joy of your own companionship. To learn to inhabit this space of solitude is to discover an inner wellspring of peace and contentment that is not dependent on any external person or condition. It is to move from a state of inner poverty to one of great inner wealth. The ending of a relationship, as painful as it is, provides the perfect, albeit unsought, opportunity to make this transformative journey. When we are part of a couple, especially over a long period, our identities can become subtly and deeply enmeshed. Our routines, our social circles, our hobbies, and even our tastes can merge into a composite identity of us. We listen to our music, we watch our shows, we have our friends. The dissolution of the relationship, then, is a radical decluttering. The we has vanished, and for the first time in a long time, we are left with only the raw, unfiltered truth of I. This can be disorienting, but it is also a precious invitation to begin a new journey of self-discovery. It is a chance to ask the questions we may not have asked for years. Who am I, really, when I am not reflecting myself in the mirror of another's eyes? What brings me joy? What are my passions? What are my core values, independent of anyone else's influence or approval? This period is like a fallow season for a farmer's field. A field that is left fallow is not empty or useless. It is in a vital state of rest and replenishment. It is gathering nutrients from deep within the soil, storing up energy for future growth. To consciously enter a period of solitude is to allow the field of your own heart, this same sacred, fallow time. It is a time for deep nourishment and the rediscovery of your own fertile ground. This is not a passive waiting game. It is an active cultivation. You can begin by creating a small, sacred space in your own home, a comfortable chair, in a quiet corner, a place with a candle, a plant, or a meaningful object. This becomes your sanctuary, a physical space dedicated to the practice of being with yourself. Then comes the courageous practice of dating yourself. Treat yourself with the same curiosity and kindness you would offer a potential partner. Take yourself to a museum you've always wanted to see. Go for a long walk in nature without the distraction of a podcast or a phone call. Take yourself out for a meal and savor it, just you and your food. At first, this may feel awkward, but it is a powerful way to learn that you can be good company for yourself. This is also the time to reconnect with the lost parts of your own identity. What did you love to do before this relationship began? Did you paint, play the guitar, write poetry, hike mountains, or volunteer for a cause you believed in? So often, these personal passions get placed on a shelf to make room for the shared life of a couple. Now is the time to take them down, dust them off, and see if they still bring you alive. This is not about filling time. It is about reclaiming the vibrant, multifaceted person you have always been. And perhaps most importantly, you must cultivate a friendship with silence. We live in a world that is terrified of silence, a world of constant noise and stimulation. We use this noise to distract ourselves from the one voice we are most afraid of hearing, our own. By choosing moments of silence, turning off the television, leaving the headphones at home, you create the conditions for your own deeper wisdom, your own intuition, to finally be heard. In the spiritual traditions, the figure of the hermit is often misunderstood as a misanthrope, someone who flees to a mountain cave because they hate humanity. But the true hermit goes into solitude, not to escape the world, but to find it. They retreat from the noise of society so they can finally encounter the unfiltered truth of their own being. In the depths of their solitude, they do not find loneliness. They discover their profound connection to all of life. We can all become hermits in this way, creating small caves of solitude in our busy lives to embark on this same essential journey. To learn to be happy and whole in your own company is the single greatest gift you can give, not only to yourself, but to any future partner you may have. When you enter a new relationship from a place of solitude and self-sufficiency, you are not looking for someone to complete you or to save you from your loneliness. You are already complete. You are already saved. You are now looking for a worthy companion with whom to share your journey. This liberates the other person from the impossible task of being the source of your happiness. It allows for a love based on freedom, mutual respect, and genuine friendship, rather than the desperate, fearful clinging that characterized the past. You are finally able to love another for who they truly are, not for what they do for your fragile ego. Through this conscious cultivation, the painful void of loneliness is transformed into the rich, generative space of solitude. It is the journey of coming home to the most important person in your life, yourself. As you stand now in this newfound inner strength, comfortable in your own skin, you can look back at the path you have traveled. You are no longer shattered by the loss. You have gathered the pieces. And now, what of the scars? What do we do with the visible lines of the break? The next step on our path teaches us not to hide them, but to illuminate them, to see them as the very source of our new and unique beauty. This is the art of Kintsugi, the golden repair of the heart. We began this journey together with the image of a broken ceramic bowl. We looked at the shattered pieces with the eyes of grief, seeing only ruin and the end of something beautiful. Having now traveled through the landscapes of our own pain, having sat with the storms of emotion, having questioned the very nature of ourself and our stories, and having found a quiet home in the present moment, we return to those same broken pieces, but we return with new eyes. We are no longer here to mourn the breakage. We are here, with patience and with care, to begin the sacred art of repair. We are here to learn the wisdom of Kintsugi. Our modern world is largely a throwaway culture. When a device stops working, when a piece of clothing is torn, when a plate is chipped, our first instinct is to discard it and replace it with something new and flawless. We have been conditioned to value perfection, to prize smooth, unbroken surfaces, and to see any sign of damage or wear as a defect. We apply this same philosophy to our own hearts and lives. When we are broken by loss, we are taught to hide the damage. We are told to get over it, to move on, to put on a brave face and pretend we are not scarred. We come to see our own history of pain, our vulnerabilities, and our emotional wounds as shameful flaws that must be concealed at all costs, lest we be seen as used, as damaged goods. The Kintsugi philosophy is a direct and profound rebellion against this cultural mandate. Kintsugi, which translates as golden joinery, is the ancient Japanese art of mending broken pottery, not with invisible glue to hide the cracks, but with a precious lacquer mixed with powdered gold, silver, or platinum. The process is slow, meticulous, and deliberate. It is an act of devotion. The artisan does not rush. They carefully gather every piece, no matter how small, and reassemble the vessel with a deep respect for its history. The philosophy is its most powerful teaching. A break is not something to be disguised. It is an integral event in the life of the object, an event that, when properly honored, can make it more beautiful, more valuable, and more resilient than it was before it fell. The Kintsugi artist does not see a broken bowl. They see an opportunity for transformation. Your heart is that ceramic bowl. The heartbreak was the fall. The pieces are the shattered parts of your life and identity. For a long time, you have been looking at them with despair. Now, you pick them up with the hands of a Kintsugi master your own hands. The cracks on the bowl are the map of your unique journey. They tell a story. They speak of a love that was real enough to cause this pain. They speak of your courage to open your heart to another person. They speak of your capacity to feel deeply, which is one of the greatest gifts of being human. To try and erase these cracks with a seamless, invisible repair would be to deny your own history. It would be an act of violence against your own lived experience. The Kintsugi philosophy invites you to honor these cracks, to trace them with reverence. And what is the precious gold we will use for this sacred repair? The gold is the wisdom you have cultivated on this difficult path. Every piece of insight is a pinch of powdered gold, to be mixed into the lacquer of your healing. There is the gold of self-compassion, the profound discovery that you can be a friend to yourself in your darkest hour. There is the gold of impermanence, the liberating understanding that all things, including your pain, are in a state of flux. There is the gold of non-attachment, the wisdom of loving with an open hand rather than a clenched fist. There is the gold of emptiness, the realization of your deep interconnection with all of life, which frees you from the prison of a small, isolated self. There is the gold of solitude, the discovery that your own company can be a source of richness and peace. This is your gold. You have earned it. You have mined it from the depths of your own suffering. Now, with the utmost care, you mix this gold with the lacquer of your intention, and you begin to mend your own heart. You are not just gluing it back together. You are consciously and lovingly illuminating the lines of your own healing. You are making your scars shine. And what is the result? A heart that has never been broken is a pristine heart, but it is also a naive heart. It is like a new, mass-produced bowl from a factory, functional, but without character, without a story. A heart that has been shattered and then mended with the gold of wisdom, is a masterpiece of breathtaking beauty. It is utterly unique. It cannot be replicated. Its value lies not in its original perfection, but in its history of imperfection and the conscious, loving way it has been repaired. This mended heart is stronger than it was before. The golden lacquer bonds are famously durable. In the same way, you become stronger in the very places where you were broken, because you have filled those cracks with awareness, with compassion, with a deeper understanding of life. The wound becomes a source of unshakable strength. This heart is also more compassionate. Having known its own brokenness, it can recognize the cracks in others, not as flaws, but as evidence of their own journeys. It can meet another's pain with authentic empathy, because it knows the landscape of loss and repair. The Kintsugi heart does not judge, it connects. To live with a Kintsugi heart is to move through the world in a new way. You no longer feel the need to project an image of perfection. You are not ashamed of your past. You can speak of your losses, not with the raw charge of an open wound, but with the quiet, resonant wisdom of a survivor who has found profound meaning and beauty in their healing. Your scars are not your shame. They are your glory. They are a testament to your ability to love, to lose, and to rise again, not just intact, but more beautiful than before. You cease to be a victim of your history and become a walking work of art, a living testament to the transformative power of embracing your own beautiful human brokenness. Having come to see your own heart as this precious, golden-veined masterpiece, your understanding of love itself must now be transformed. You can no longer seek a perfect, unbroken partner, nor can you yearn for a flawless, trouble-free relationship. You know that perfection is an illusion, and that true beauty lies in the history, the character, and the resilience of a life fully lived. Your Kintsugi heart now seeks a different kind of connection, a love that is not based on the fantasy of idealism, but on the profound beauty of authenticity, freedom, and the shared courage to embrace imperfection. You are now ready to redefine love itself. With a heart that has been broken open and lovingly mended with the gold of wisdom, a heart that now understands its own strength and beauty, we can no longer approach love in the same way. The old maps are useless now. The fairy tales of perfect, effortless, everlasting romance ring hollow. The passionate but painful dramas of clinging and possession have lost their allure. The Kintsugi heart, in its wholeness and its beautiful imperfection, requires a new and more profound understanding of what it means to love. We are now ready to redefine love itself, moving from a model of possession to one of freedom. For most of our lives, we are taught a model of love that is based on lack. It is the story of the half-person, wandering the world in search of their other half, the one soulmate, who will finally complete them and make them whole. This narrative, woven into our songs, our films, and our cultural myths, is deeply seductive, but it is a recipe for suffering. It casts us as beggars, seeking happiness outside of ourselves. It turns the other person into a source of emotional supply, a utility whose function is to fill the emptiness we feel within. This love is conditional and transactional. The unspoken contract is, I will love you as long as you make me feel good, as long as you meet my needs, as long as you affirm my identity. This is a love of consumption, and it inevitably leads to the dynamics of attachment, the fear, the jealousy, the need to control, and the devastating sense of annihilation when the person leaves. This is the love that shatters. The wisdom born from our healing invites us to discard this broken model and embrace a new one. This new love is not based on lack, but on fullness. It does not begin with two half people searching for completion. It begins with two whole individuals who have undertaken the courageous inner work of becoming their own source of peace and contentment. It is the love of two people who have walked the path of solitude and discovered the richness of their own company. They are not looking for a savior. They have already saved themselves. They do not need another person to make them whole. They are already whole. And from this place of inner wealth, they choose to share their journey with another. The fundamental premise shifts from "I need you to complete me" to "I am whole and you are whole. Let us share our journey and celebrate our completeness together." Imagine two magnificent, ancient trees growing side by side in a forest. They do not lean on each other for support. If one were struck by lightning, the other would not fall. Each tree has its own strong, sovereign trunk, its own deep root system, drawing nourishment directly from the earth. They are not dependent on each other for their survival. Yet, they are companions. They share the same sunlight, the same rain, the same soil. High above, their branches may intermingle, creating a shared canopy that provides shelter for the life below. Underground, their roots may touch and communicate, sharing nutrients and information in a silent, subterranean network. But they remain, fundamentally, two distinct and powerful beings. Their relationship is one of mutual presence, respect, and shared space, not of dependent clinging. This is the model for an awakened love. This kind of love has discernible qualities. It is profoundly generous. It gives for the joy of giving, without keeping a hidden ledger of what it expects in return. It is a love rooted in appreciation, not expectation. It celebrates the other person for who they truly are in this moment, rather than trying to force them into an idealized image of who we need them to be. It has the courage for deep honesty, because the partners are not terrified that speaking their truth will lead to abandonment. Their security rests within themselves, so they can afford to be vulnerable and authentic with each other. This love finds intimacy, not just in moments of passion, but in the quiet spaces of shared stillness. The ability to simply be with another person in comfortable silence, without the need to fill the space with noise or distraction, is a hallmark of this deep connection. In its most profound form, the relationship itself can become a spiritual practice, a shared path to awakening. The partners become allies in liberation. They can lovingly mirror each other, gently pointing out blind spots, challenging each other's limiting beliefs, and celebrating each other's growth and insight. The relationship ceases to be merely about personal happiness and becomes a vehicle for mutual transformation. This is a love that sees the divine potential in the other and dedicates itself to helping that potential flourish. This redefinition ultimately reframes love as a verb, not a noun. The old model sees love as a static thing, a prize to be won, a state to be fallen into. Once you have it, the work is done. The new model understands that love is a dynamic practice. It is something you do, not something you have. It is the daily, moment-to-moment practice of paying attention, of listening deeply, of forgiving freely, of offering kindness, of making space for the other's freedom, and of returning to your own center. It is a conscious and continuous choice to cultivate connection, not a magical state that descends upon us. To love in this way does not grant us immunity from the law of impermanence. Loss, change, and endings are still a part of life. A partner may still choose to leave, or may be taken from us by death. But a heart that loves from a place of wholeness will not be shattered in the same way. The pain of loss will be real. The grief will be profound, but it will not be a crisis of identity. It will not be the agony of a half person who has lost their other half. It will be the clean, noble grief of a whole person who has had to say goodbye to a cherished traveling companion. The foundation of our being, our own inner peace and wholeness, remains intact. This is the great turning point. We move from a love born of hunger to a love born of nourishment. We stop being beggars, hoping for another person to give us the scraps of validation we crave. We become gracious hosts, with a great feast of peace and contentment spread within us, inviting another to share in our abundance. This new definition of love, born from the ashes of our heartbreak, is not just a concept. It is a fundamental shift in our way of being that radiates outward, changing not only our intimate relationships, but our very perception of the world itself. Having learned to see love in this new light, we are now ready to see everything with new eyes, as if for the first time. We are ready for the wisdom of the beginner's mind. Having redefined love and embraced a new way of relating to others from a place of wholeness, we find that the transformation does not stop there. When a central pillar of our worldview collapses, it is not just one part of the house that falls. The entire structure is shaken. The old roof of our certainties has been torn off, leaving us exposed, vulnerable, and standing under the vast, open sky of the unknown. For the ego, this is a terrifying state. But for the spirit, it is the beginning of true freedom. The demolition of what we thought we knew is a profound and unasked for gift. It is an invitation to return to a state of mind that the Zen tradition calls shoshin, or beginner's mind. Most of us move through the world with an expert's mind. This is a mind that is full of knowledge, opinions, labels, and conclusions. It has already made up its mind about almost everything. When the expert's mind sees a tree, it quickly accesses the file labeled tree and moves on. It doesn't truly see the tree in front of it, the way the light filters through its unique leaves, the texture of its bark, the way it sways in the wind. It sees only its own concept. When the expert's mind meets a new person, it quickly sorts them into a category: safe, threatening, useful, boring, attractive. It lives in a world of second-hand reality, filtered through the thick, cloudy lens of its own past experiences, prejudices, and conditioning. This expert's mind was the mind that knew what love was. It knew your relationship would last. It knew what your future held. And the heartbreak proved, in the most painful way possible, that its expertise was an illusion. Beginner's mind, or shoshin, is the complete opposite. It is the mind of a young child seeing the world for the first time. A child encountering a flower is not concerned with its botanical name or its classification. They are utterly captivated by the direct experience of its vibrant color, its delicate form, its subtle fragrance. They are in a state of pure, unmediated wonder. Shoshin is this quality of openness, eagerness, and curiosity. It is a mind that is empty of preconceptions and therefore full of possibility. The great Zen master Shunryu Suzuki famously said, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few." The expert is imprisoned by what they know. The beginner is liberated by what they don't know. Your heartbreak, in all its pain, has been a ferocious and effective teacher of shoshin. It has been a process of radical unknowing. It took the slate of your life, the one on which you had written all of your certainties in permanent marker, and it wiped it clean. Everything you were sure of was called into question. This is terrifying, but it is also a form of grace. You have been freed from the prison of your old conclusions. You have been given the rare and precious opportunity to start again, to see the world not as you thought it was, but as it actually is, in this fresh, unrepeatable moment. You have, by necessity, become a beginner again. This is not just a beautiful idea. It is a practice we can cultivate in our daily lives. It is the practice of consciously dropping our expertise and looking at the world with fresh eyes. You can start with your senses. Pick up a familiar object, perhaps the cup you drink from every morning. Look at it as if you have never seen it before. Notice its weight, its curve, its color, the way the light reflects off its surface. Feel its texture against your fingertips and your lips. You are not looking at a cup. You are having a direct, intimate experience with this unique form. When you eat, take the first bite with the full attention of a beginner. Let the flavors and textures reveal themselves to your palate as if for the first time. When you take a walk you have taken 1,000 times before, pretend you are a visitor from another planet. What do you notice? The intricate pattern of a crack in the sidewalk, the sound of leaves rustling, the expression on a stranger's face. We can apply this practice to our relationships as well. Our expert mind has already formed a solid opinion about everyone we know. Our parents, our siblings, our friends. We interact not with them, but with our fixed idea of them. To practice Shoshin is to listen to them today with the understanding that they are not the same person they were yesterday. Can you listen without filtering their words through the entire history of your past disagreements? Can you see them as they are now, a flowing river of thoughts and feelings, rather than a static statue you have already labeled? Most importantly, we can apply this beginner's mind to ourselves. When you look in the mirror, can you see the face that is there today, without the heavy overlay of who you were yesterday, or the fear of who you will be tomorrow? Can you approach your own thoughts and feelings with a gentle curiosity, rather than the jaded familiarity of an expert who thinks they already know all of their own neuroses? To see yourself with a beginner's mind is to give yourself the gift of infinite possibility, the freedom to be new in every moment. This open, curious state of mind is the fertile soil from which genuine joy and creativity naturally spring. The expert's mind is often bored. It has seen it all before. But for the beginner's mind, the world is constantly new, constantly fresh, constantly miraculous. A simple sunset can be a source of profound awe. A piece of music can bring tears to your eyes. A conversation with a friend can reveal a new universe. This is how joy slowly re-enters a life that has been darkened by grief. It does not come because we chase after it. It comes because we have cultivated the open and receptive heart to which joy is naturally drawn. The world has not changed, but our way of seeing it has been reborn. The catastrophic collapse of our old world was not, in the end, a tragedy. It was a clearing of the land. It was the demolition of a cramped and dark house, which now allows us to see the vast, open sky. Shoshin is the practice of living under that open sky, free from the low ceiling of our past conclusions. It is the key to rediscovering the wonder, the freshness, and the vibrant aliveness that is always available, right here, in the ordinary moments of our lives. Yet, this state of wide-eyed wonder does not negate our history. We are both the beginner, seeing the world anew, and the Kintsugi masterpiece, whose golden scars tell a story of a painful past. We are both fresh and scarred, open and wise, new and ancient. How do we hold these seemingly contradictory truths together? How do we live in this fresh, new world while honoring the wounds that brought us here? This requires a new level of spiritual maturity, the ability to embrace paradox, to live comfortably with a truth that cannot be resolved by simple logic. It is the practice of holding two opposing ideas in our heart at the same time and finding peace in the tension between them. As we draw nearer to the heart of this path, the teachings become more subtle, requiring a mind that is willing to hold what seems impossible. We arrive now at perhaps the most profound and challenging wisdom of all, a truth that sits at the razor's edge of understanding. It is the ability to hold two seemingly contradictory ideas in our awareness at the very same time. The first idea is this: your pain, your suffering, your grief, your anxiety is 100% real, valid, and deserving of the utmost respect and compassion. The second idea is this: that very same pain, when examined at its deepest level, is fundamentally empty, impermanent, and has no solid, independent self to cling to. To live with this paradox is to touch the highest wisdom. The conditioned mind immediately wants to choose one or the other. It tells us that if the pain is real, it must be solid and all-consuming, or if it is empty, then it must not be real, and we should simply ignore it. But the path we are walking is not one of either or. It is the path of both and. First, and this is of critical importance, we must never use this wisdom to deny our pain. To do so is to fall into a cold and disconnected state of nihilism, a form of spiritual bypassing where we pretend we are above the human condition. This is not the way. When the heart breaks, it truly breaks. When grief arrives, it washes over us like a tidal wave. The first and most compassionate step is always to honor this reality, to feel it fully, to allow the sensations of sorrow or fear to move through the body without resistance. We must give our pain the dignity of our full attention. Your tears are real. Your fear is real. Your sense of loss is real. There is no teaching that asks you to pretend otherwise. We must be willing to sit with the raw, uncomfortable, visceral truth of our own experience. We offer it the kindness and warmth of our awareness, just as we would offer a comforting presence to a dear friend who is suffering. This is the first wing of the bird, the acknowledgement of relative truth, the reality of our lived experience. Then, once we have honored the pain, once we have allowed it to be, we can gently begin to investigate it with the light of mindfulness. This is where we cultivate the second wing of the bird, the understanding of ultimate truth, the empty nature of all phenomena. We look closely at the experience we call grief or anxiety. What is it, really? Is it a single, solid, unchanging thing? Or is it a constantly shifting constellation of thoughts, physical sensations, memories, and emotions? We notice a tightness in the chest. We notice a recurring thought. We notice a memory flashing in the mind. We notice the impulse to cry. We see that grief is not a noun, but a verb. It is a process, a flow. It is like a cloud in the sky. The cloud is real. You can see it. It can block the sun and bring rain. But the cloud has no solid core. It is a temporary formation of water vapor, constantly changing, appearing, and eventually dissolving back into the clear sky. To identify with our pain is to believe that we are the cloud. The wisdom is to realize that we are the sky, the vast, open awareness in which the cloud of pain appears and, in its own time, passes. The pain does not belong to a solid, permanent me. It is an impersonal process flowing through consciousness. Seeing this does not erase the pain, but it changes our relationship to it. It loosens its grip. We are no longer its prisoner, but its compassionate witness. Living in this way requires a delicate and constant balance. It is like walking on a tightrope. If you lean too far to one side, believing your pain is the only reality, you fall into the abyss of ego clinging and overwhelming suffering. If you lean too far to the other side, prematurely dismissing your pain as just an illusion, you fall into the abyss of nihilism and emotional dissociation. The practice of mindfulness is the balancing pole we carry. It is the continuous, moment-to-moment awareness that allows us to stay on the wire, holding both truths in a graceful equilibrium. We feel the pain fully, and we see its empty nature simultaneously. In the Zen tradition, this breaking of dualistic thought is often provoked by the use of a koan, a question that cannot be answered by logic, such as, what is the sound of one hand clapping? The rational mind freezes. It cannot compute. It is in that moment of stillness, when the conceptual mind gives up, that a space opens for a direct, intuitive seeing of reality as it is, beyond the categories of right and wrong, real and unreal, being and non-being. The paradox of suffering is our personal koan. Life presents it to us again and again. Our task is not to solve it logically, but to learn to live within its mysterious and liberating truth. This journey is not a straight line away from our troubles, but a circle that brings us back to life, but with a profoundly different vision, a higher level of understanding. Chắc chắn rồi. Tôi hiểu yêu cầu của bạn. Tôi sẽ viết lại chi tiết. Phần 2.20 mở rộng các ý tưởng và đi sâu hơn vào từng giai đoạn của câu chuyện 10 bức tranh chăn trâu để đảm bảo đạt được độ dài khoảng 1.500 từ, đồng thời giữ nguyên giọng văn chiêm nghiệm và tuân thủ tất cả các định dạng đã được thiết lập. Part 2.20 The Circle of Awakening. The 10 Ox. Herding Pictures. The entire spiritual journey we have been discussing, with all its challenges, insights, and moments of grace, is not a new or uncharted territory. For centuries, ancient masters have created maps to guide us, and none is more elegant or profound than the timeless Zen allegory known as the 10 Ox Herding Pictures. This is more than just a quaint story with simple drawings. It is a detailed psychological and spiritual map of consciousness itself, a mirror that reflects our own journey back to us, showing us where we are, where we have been, and where we are going. It is a story of homecoming, a return to something we never truly lost but only forgot. In this allegory, the ox represents our deepest, most authentic self. It is our original nature, our innate capacity for peace, wisdom, and compassion that lies beneath the turbulent surface of our daily thoughts and emotions. It is the feeling of being truly at home in our own skin, a quiet, unshakable presence that doesn't need anything from the world to be complete. But in the noise and haste of modern life, amidst the endless demands and distractions, we have lost sight of this powerful, gentle creature. We have become separated from our own core, and the journey is about finding our way back. The story begins, as all true journeys do, with a sense of loss. The first picture is searching for the ox. The herder, who is us, stands alone in the wilderness, surrounded by tall grass. He is bewildered, anxious, and weary. This image is a perfect portrait of the modern human condition. It is the feeling of restlessness, the low-grade anxiety that hums beneath the surface of our lives. It's the endless scrolling through our phones hoping for a connection that never quite satisfies, the pursuit of the next promotion, the next purchase, the next experience, all in the hope that it will finally fill an inner emptiness. The herder is searching for his ox everywhere, but all he sees is the confusing wilderness of his own mind, the tall grass of endless thoughts, worries, and plans that obscure his vision. He has forgotten what the ox even looks like, but he knows, with a deep and aching certainty, that his life is incomplete without it. This is the beginning of the spiritual path, the honest admission that our current way of living is not leading to true happiness, and the dawning of a sincere desire to find another way. The second picture, discovering the footprints, marks a moment of profound hope. After a long and desperate search, the herder finally sees a trace. In the mud, he finds the footprints of the ox. He hasn't seen the ox itself, but he has found proof of its existence. In our lives, these footprints are the first moments of true clarity. It might be a line in a book that strikes us with the force of truth, a moment of unexpected peace during a walk in nature, or the first time we sit in meditation, and, for a fleeting second, the relentless inner chatter subsides. These experiences are not the destination, but they are vital signs. They are evidence that a state of inner peace is not just a fantasy, but a real possibility. This discovery galvanizes the herder. His search is no longer blind. He now has a direction, a path to follow. He knows the ox is real, and he is filled with a new determination to find it. This determination leads him to the third picture, perceiving the ox. Following the tracks, he rounds a bend, and there, for the first time, he sees the hindquarters of the ox disappearing into the trees. It is only a glimpse, but it is powerful and real. This is our first direct insight into the nature of our mind. It can be both thrilling and intimidating. We see the raw, untamed power of our true nature. It is not some small, docile thing. It is a great, powerful beast. The glimpse is often short-lived. The ox, startled, vanishes back into the forest. Similarly, our early moments of insight are often fleeting. We touch a state of profound peace or clarity, and then, almost immediately, the habitual mind takes over again, and it is gone. But the experience changes us. We now know, from our own direct seeing, what we are looking for. This seeing leads to the most difficult phase of the journey, depicted in the fourth picture, catching the ox. The herder finally manages to get a rope around the ox's nose, and an immense struggle ensues. The ox is wild and strong, its untamed energy pulling violently in every direction. It longs for its old, wild pastures of fantasy, worry, and distraction. The herder must hold on with all his might. The rope and whip in this picture symbolize our spiritual tools, our discipline, our meditation techniques, our unwavering intention. This stage represents the hard work of formal practice. It is the daily act of sitting on the cushion when we don't feel like it, of continually and patiently bringing our attention back from distraction 1,000 times over. It is a period of intense struggle where we come face to face with the deeply ingrained habits of our mind. It requires immense persistence and courage. The temptation to let go of the rope, to give up, is tremendous. But the herder holds on, knowing that this struggle is the only way to true freedom. Through this persistent and compassionate effort, we arrive at the fifth and sixth pictures, taming the ox and riding the ox home. The struggle begins to subside. The ox, feeling the herder's gentle but firm guidance, gradually becomes less willful. Its wild energy is not broken or destroyed, but channeled. It begins to trust the herder. In our practice, this is the stage where the mind begins to settle. Reactivity lessens. There is a growing sense of inner space and calm. The tools of practice, the rope and whip, are still present, but they are held loosely. The herder no longer needs to fight. In the sixth picture, a beautiful harmony is achieved. The herder is now riding on the back of the ox, playing a flute. He is not steering with the rope anymore. The ox follows his master's intention willingly. Practice is no longer a chore, but a joyful expression of our being. The song from the flute symbolizes this newfound freedom and ease. We are no longer at war with ourselves. There is a deep sense of alignment, of heading home, not through force, but through a graceful and willing cooperation between our intention and the natural flow of our mind. The journey then takes a turn into a much deeper, more subtle realm. The seventh picture is the ox transcended. The herder has arrived home. He sits peacefully outside his hut. The ox is nowhere to be seen. The whip and rope are set aside. This means the goal has been fully integrated. We no longer need to think about or strive for our true nature because we are living it. The practice that was once so effortful has become our natural state. It is like learning to ride a bicycle. In the beginning, you must constantly think about balance and pedaling, but once you learn, you simply ride without a thought. The focus on the object of the search, the oxis, no longer necessary, because the separation between searcher and sought is dissolving. This dissolution becomes complete in the eighth picture, which is simply a stark, empty circle. Both ox and self transcended. This is the most profound stage, representing the realization of what the mystics call non-duality or sunyata. Not only has the ox disappeared, but the herder is also gone. The entire concept of a separate self who was on a journey, a me who was taming my mind, is seen through as an illusion. The wave realizes it was never separate from the ocean. The reflection realizes it is inseparable from the mirror. It is not an experience of nothingness, but of everything-ness. It is the falling away of the egoic self into the boundless, open, luminous awareness that is our ultimate ground of being. What is left is not a person who is enlightened, but simply enlightenment itself. Yet, crucially, the story does not end here in this sublime, empty state. The ninth picture, returning to the source, shows the world reappearing. Trees are green, streams are flowing, flowers are blooming. It is a return to the world of form, but seen now with eyes cleansed of illusion. The sacred is not in some other realm. It is discovered in the raw, unfiltered beauty of the ordinary. And this leads to the final, and perhaps most important, picture of all. Entering the marketplace with bliss, bestowing hands. The enlightened sage does not remain in a mountain cave. He returns to the messy, noisy, chaotic world of ordinary people. He is depicted as a portly, jolly man, a simple layman, sharing a drink and a laugh. He is in the world, but not of it. His enlightenment is not a personal possession to be guarded, but a boundless compassion that radiates from him naturally, without any sense of effort or piety. His every action a kind word, a helping hand, a shared meal serves to awaken others. This is the true culmination of the path, not to escape the world, but to return to it with a transformed heart, bringing peace and liberation to all beings, simply by living an ordinary life in an extraordinary way. It is a perfect circle, ending exactly where we began, but with nothing, and yet everything, having changed. We began our journey together with the image of a broken bowl, a symbol for a heart shattered by life's inevitable difficulties. We looked at that brokenness not as something to be thrown away, but as a starting point. We saw how we often add a second arrow of our own making, the arrow of resistance and self-criticism, which wounds us far more than the first. We walked along the river of impermanence, learning not to build our house on its banks. We learned to practice compassion, turning towards our pain with kindness. And finally, we followed the path of the ox herder, who loses himself only to find his truest nature, and then returns to the ordinary world, completely transformed. This has been our path, a journey not around the darkness of loss and pain, but directly through it, to find a light that was never in some distant place, but was waiting patiently in the deepest chamber of our own being. The ultimate message of this journey is this: a broken heart is not a tragedy to be overcome. It is a sacred opening. The cracks are where the light gets in. It is life's profound invitation to stop searching for a permanent, problem-free peace in the ever-changing world outside, and to begin the real work of cultivating it from within. Peace is not a state of no problems. Peace is the ability to be with your problems, with your brokenness, with your uncertainty, in a state of profound calm and acceptance. It is the quiet strength that can hold all of life's joys and sorrows in the loving embrace of awareness. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are not defined by what has happened to you. Within you, right now, is the strength and the wisdom to transform your greatest pain into your deepest knowledge. Your scars are not signs of damage. They are a map that can guide you. They show where you have been, what you have survived, and the strength you have gained. In the Japanese art of Kintsugi, broken pottery is mended with lacquer mixed with powdered gold. The belief is that the piece is more beautiful and resilient for having been broken. You are the Kintsugi artist for your own heart. Your awareness and compassion are the gold. You have the power to mend your own heart, not to hide the cracks, but to illuminate them, creating a work of art that is more beautiful, more compassionate, and stronger than it was before.